5:31, and we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Guys? It's 5:31. We're going to go ahead and call the joint meeting of the Open Space Advisory Committee and the Parks and Rec Commission to order. So if we could please do a roll call. We'll start with Open Space Advisory Committee.
Chair Kimbrough, Vice Chair McQuarrie, Member Burge, Member Mozingo, Member Norrie, Member Schaefer, Member Wiggins. A quorum is present.
Great, thank you. Would you mind calling a roll call for the Parks and Rec Commission?
Yes. Chair Walt,
Here.
Vice Chair Whitefield, Commissioner Baker Roberts, Commissioner Cartwright, Commissioner McDermott,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Schutte.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Great, thank you. Seeing that we have a quorum for Open Space Advisory Committee and the Parks and Rec Commission, we will move on to agenda item number 3, which is public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Open Space Advisory Committee or the Parks and Rec Commission. Do we have any public comment? All right, thank you. Please state your name.
Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent, for the record, and just filling in for Jen, who's out of town, and there was something that she wanted me to bring to your attention that didn't make it into any of her reports. I'm Jen, yes, kind of. I don't know if I could fill those shoes, but she wanted me to kind of bring up a talking point in case any of it comes to your attention about our trees. I don't know if you've noticed that as of late, that we have a lot of trees, probably hundreds of them, that did not survive the winter. Particularly the heaviest hit areas are like along North Ridge Drive and in Silver Oak area, although there are pockets throughout town. So some of those trees and shrubs have exhibited signs and a variety of stresses, some which appear to be environmental. So staff have consulted with several professionals and technical experts to assist with identifying potential causes of the tree decline. These professionals include 2 ISA certified arborists, a pest control expert, a municipal urban forester, State Department of Agriculture entomologist, and UNR cooperative extension horticulturist. Some trees impacted include a variety of oaks, crabapple, plums, flowering pears, ash, and sycamores. Shrubs have varied as well as spirea. Man, I can't even pronounce some of these bushes. Euonymus and daylilies. The trees' irrigation systems were turned on and operating in the beginning of April due to the warm weather, and we are increasing run times in some of these areas to assist with flushing out the soils. And park staff are investigating all environmental possibilities for the decline. Some considerations include soil conditions, tree adaptability in the current locations, herbicide applications for weed management, overcrowding causing root systems competing for water and nutrients, pest infestations, diseases, and lack of natural moisture throughout the winter. Trees not able to be saved are being removed either by city staff or a third-party contractor. Please know that we do not make these decisions lightly, as the city is a proud Tree City USA and is committed to a healthy urban forest. We will develop a plan for replanting this fall. And if you have any questions or concerns, you should contact our Park Operations Superintendent, David Navarro, at 775-887-2262. And that's basically what our statement is. So obviously there's lots of factors that could be. We're trying to sort out what it is. It might be a mixture of all of those things. And just a really mild winter that caused, it sounds like when you say mild winter, it shouldn't have caused more, but just with the bugs and other things that didn't get impacted, that it could just be kind of everything kind of lined up for not good conditions for those particular trees, unfortunately. So just wanted to make sure that you were updated on those things in case you get any questions.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4 for possible action approval of minutes. We'll start with open space.
Can't you review the minutes? Do I have any changes, or can I get a motion for approval?
I move to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2025.
Thank you. Second? Second, Keith. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Carries unanimous. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Then we will move on to the approval of minutes for the Parks and Rec Commission meeting of April 1st of 2025. I will abstain since I was not at the meeting. Are there any questions, comments, edits to the minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from Tuesday, April 1st, 2025.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Meyer, motion by Commissioner Schutte and seconded by Commissioner Meyer. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passed unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, seeing that, we will go ahead and move on to agenda.
Just to
Go ahead.
clarify for the record, since you abstained, that was technically a
Oh,
what,
yeah.
5-1?
5-1, yes, with one abstention from Commissioner Walt. Thank you so much.
Oh, I didn't give you a chance.
All right, so with the open meeting, the open space, we will also have an abstention from, will you state your name?
Okay, so it looks like for the record, for the open space minutes, that was 4 voted in favor and 2 abstained. Commissioners Mazingo and, did I get that right? And McQuarrie abstained.
Now, when I was with the planning commission, we had a long discussion and that they didn't have to abstain if they weren't there, if they read the minutes and didn't see anything wrong. So was I misinformed maybe a few years ago?
No, you're not. When you're not, when a commissioner or a board member isn't present, you can view the meeting on video and vote on the minutes. That's not prohibited. The only time it becomes an issue is when there's not enough people who are voting that don't constitute a quorum. In this case, we had 5 people voting for one commission and 4 people voting for the other, so it's not an issue.
Great, thank you. And does the clerk recorder have that? Yeah, all right, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5A. This is for discussion only, and this is a presentation only by the Carson City Park Rangers regarding activities throughout parks and open space. And this is John Costello, and he's ready to go. Welcome.
Thank you. John Costello, Senior Park Ranger, for the record. This is, I think, the 4th or 5th year that I've done this annual presentation. For new members, I every year give a rundown of our Park Ranger program, just to give you some updates. In this year's presentation, I left in a lot of the statistics from last year as well, so you could kind of see the comparison from this past year compared to this year. Now that we're fully staffed for us, and we have 4 full-time rangers, and we're going on about 10 months of that now. So that's the first time in my tenure that we've had 4 full-time rangers, so 3 full-time rangers and a senior park ranger. So I myself have been with the department a little over 9 years. So as I go through the presentation, if you have any questions, please let me know. Just to give you a brief rundown of some of the trainings that our park rangers participate in throughout the course of the year. It does change every year. However, there are some that are consistent trainings that are annual trainings. They may be required for specific tools that we carry every day. So wilderness and remote first aid, conducted energy weapons, so taser. And I do want to preface that we are non-post certified, so we're non-commissioned. So a lot of these trainings we have to seek out from other agencies. We work closely with Washoe County Rangers as well as Reno Rangers. And because we're kind of all in the same boat where we're non-commissioned, we work together a lot and collaborate on a lot of these trainings that you see on this list. OC training, baton, de-escalation, crisis intervention training, and that's held or hosted by the sheriff's office in town. First aid, CPR, AED, Park Rangers Association of California Parks Training Conference. This is a really great training that our rangers get to go to every year. This last year, we were fortunate to have it in Reno So that was in March, and it's typically 3 or 4 days long. This is a really valuable training for us because it kind of covers all of our emphasis areas since we are generalist rangers. It covers a little bit of everything for us with maintenance, interpretive programming, as well as law enforcement. And then Ranger Excellence School, similarly to Park Rangers Association of California. This is a training, I call it like a mini Ranger Academy for non-commissioned Rangers. It's held in Estes Park, Colorado. Another really great opportunity for our staff. This isn't as much geared towards the generalist Ranger. This is more law enforcement training. However, this is a really valuable training. The picture that's in this slide is actually from Ranger Excellence School because they do a really great job with scenarios. They dedicate an entire day to scenarios. So that kind of on-the-job, hands-on training at the end of the training week is invaluable to our staff. And it used to be just for Larimer County seasonal park rangers. However, they've expanded over the last probably 4 or 5 years where there are full-time rangers that are non-commissioned that are coming from all over the country for this training. So it's a really great training for our staff. Nevada State Parks in-service training. This is a training that takes place typically twice a year with commissioned state park rangers. And they're gracious enough to invite us for the majority of their training because a lot of what they do is what we do as well. So, we're able to learn from their instructors and spend a day with them. So that's a great training as well. And then defensive driving, NDOW wildlife training, and certified interpretive guide training. As I'm sure all of you know, we do a lot of programs, probably 2 to 3 a month. I know the last time that I was here, Molly had made a comment about in schools, and we've certainly ramped that up this year. So we've been going in schools or having schools come to us for those interpretive programs. So this is a really big component of our job. So this is a great training for our staff as well. Some of the maintenance tasks that our rangers perform, trash can service along trails that maybe our park maintenance staff can't get to with a trash truck. Typically, we're kind of getting those oddball areas. Dog waste station service that goes along with the trash can service. Illegal dump site cleanup, in open space properties, that is still an issue. Not nearly as big of an issue as when I first started here. However, it still does happen, unfortunately. Graffiti removal, fence installation, sign installation, illegal camp cleanup, tree pruning, and volunteer cleanups. Enforcement and educational contacts. So typically we can cite under Title 13. We just gained approval from the DA's office to cite under Title 8 as well. And, there's specific codes within Title 8 that we can cite for. It's not the entire title, but typically we operate under Title 13. So these are just some examples of, what we're enforcing out in the field from an educational standpoint regarding, no dogs in some of our areas where we don't allow dogs. Camping, obviously we don't allow camping in any of our areas. Illegal campfires or open flame. So that could be like a charcoal barbecue. We do allow propane. So, that's always one that we get out at Mills Park, specifically coming up July 4th. Fireworks, dogs in parks, firearms, vehicles. So vehicles is typically like your parking contacts. Activities limited. This is kind of a broad code that we use for drone usage, specific things like that. It can be a catch-all, however, it is specified in the code. So I would say that's kind of one of the codes that we use, maybe the least amount. And then flora fauna, this is typically any damage to any of our natural resources, wildlife, things of that nature. Park ranger data. Data was collected from 58 locations So I think the locations went up from last year by, I want to say 7. So in my report from last year, June 2023 to June 2024, total reports was 718. Parks reports was 513 of that 718. Open space reports was 205. And then I kind of always like to throw this in just to give a big picture look at how often we're making contact with people at Mills Park. 248 of those reports came from just Mills Park. So that's a pretty big number out of that 718. And then for June 2024 to June 2025, and again, keep in mind with these numbers, the reason that they did all go up is because, this is, I would say this is the first report where, I've come to you fully staffed, with 4 full-time rangers. Parks reports was 808. Open space reports was 252. And total reports were 1,060. And Mills Park only was 363. So this kind of breaks down the data a little bit. Obviously, if you add all these numbers up in this graph, it's not going to equal to the 1,000 because there were a couple ones that we maybe only had 3 or 4 contacts. So unhoused contacts. So when I say unhoused, that means we're making contact with unhoused individuals and we're likely providing resources. Typically, the reason that we're making contact with them is because they've set up camp at one of our parks or open space areas. So you can kind of see that was the same graph from last year, 2023, 2024. As you can see, that number went from 47 to 116 this year. And every time we're making contact with unhoused individuals, we're providing them with resources, trying to provide them with somewhere to stay, somewhere they can get a hot meal, some clothes, things of that nature. But that is something that has picked up for us. And a large chunk of that 116 is at Mills Park. Fire contacts is 20. Abandoned vehicles is 43. That's another one that's almost doubled from last year. We do get a lot of abandoned vehicles, and typically in a situation like that, we'll red tag the vehicle. And we give the individual 7 days. Thankfully, more times than not, we don't have to tow the vehicle. They come back to get their vehicle. Public assist. This is typically when we get a report from somebody and we have to respond out to that location to assist the public on whether it's a lost dog. I just went in the office today and 2 of our rangers, I believe yesterday, helped a lady find her dog on the Kings Canyon waterfall trail. So that would be an example of public assist. Access prohibited. So this is typically in areas that we have closed down or, we would ultimately trespass an individual from this area where the public is not allowed. That was 7. Activities limited was 15. Suspicious circumstances. We get a lot of these just because we're assisting the Carson City Sheriff's Office on if a call comes in about a vehicle that's been out in an area for a few days. Maybe somebody's camping. Specific things like that with the Sheriff's Office. Firearm calls is 9. Those are typically happening in our open space areas like Carson River Canyon. We have it well signed. It's right next to our rifle and pistol range. However, people still go out in our areas thinking that it's BLM and, we get those calls. So maintenance and vandalism, 179. OHV prohibited. Just to go back to the maintenance and vandalism, the reason that number is so high is because typically our park maintenance staff is dedicated to a specific area. They might be out at Pete Livermore Sports Complex. They're at Mills Park, Fuji. They're dedicated to that area, so they're there all day. We're in a lot of different spots every single day, so we're kind of the eyes and ears. We also rely on the public because we have over 8,000 acres and we can't be everywhere at once. So we're noticing a lot of those maintenance and vandalism issues just because we're in those areas more frequently. OHV prohibited. So this is typically Prison Hill. Flora fauna contacts, 4 agency assist. So this is assisting NHP, Carson City Sheriff's Office, Fire Department, whether it be a wildland fire, a medical call, traffic accident, could be a number of different things. Parking violations was 53. And the next one is an astronomical number, 252 for dog off leash. And the majority of those contacts were at Mills Park and Fuji Park. Camping is 36, graffiti 91, dogs prohibited 32. Obviously, this number has continued to stay low because of the revision that we made to the dog policy. And then dumping is 107. Some of our interpretive programs and events, junior ranger activity, we do a leave no trace, orienteering, and nature journal. And these are all from, June 2024 to June 2025. This is everything that we've done, the majority of everything that we've done. Forestry hike, scorpion search, junior ranger day, full moon hike, creatures of the night, coyote walk, cemetery tour, fall colors hike, galaxy talk, holiday hike, winter wonderland patrol, regional junior ranger day. And I'm going to do a plug real quick because we got regional junior ranger day coming up this weekend, Saturday at Miraloma Park. And there's multiple agencies involved, and that's going to be a really great event. I think it's 9 to 12, Alex? Yeah, close. 10 to 2? 10 to 2, sorry. They've been doing a lot of, Reno Rangers is hosting it, and they've been doing a lot of advertisement. So if you have kids or grandkids and you're interested in that on Saturday, that's going to be a really great event. And then Great Basin hike, ranger trivia, bear walk, bird walk, geology excursion, Great Basin hike, kids to parks day, and all of our school programs that we've been doing this year. As I mentioned earlier, that's something that we've really increased this year is getting into schools and also having them, do field trips and come down to us. And we've kind of reached out to different demographics, and it's not just in Carson City. We've been working with Douglas County schools, Washoe County schools. So we're really kind of touching all the northern Nevada region. And then these are a few slides just from some of our interpretive programs recently. We always get great pictures with the kids and their junior ranger adventure guides, some of them getting sworn in. Ranger Danielle showing a bear skull to a little girl. And then here's some more pictures. Alex was leading the Great Basin hike. That's that picture in the middle. And then, yeah. Kids to Parks Day. I had to put this one in here. Lisa Schutte and the mayor eating a bug. And then here's our interpretive program and event data. Alex, our park ranger back here, was really helpful with getting this data together. We've been ramping up our programs every year, probably the last 6 or 7 years. We're providing the public with different programs that we've never done before. Like I said, getting into schools. So we're kind of touching some areas that we haven't necessarily operated in before, senior center, things like that. So for 2023 to 2024, we had 25 programs. This year, between June to May, we had 36 programs. Our participation was 953 participants for this year. Last year was 852. And then for the calendar year, last year we did somewhere around 700. And this year from January to December, obviously we're only in June right now, we're already at almost 700. So I think we're going to do well over 1,000 participants this year. So, my team's been great with, reaching out and really advertising. And I think because of the passion that they have specifically for these interpretive programs. When they're out on a patrol, a lot of our rangers stop and they might do an impromptu interpretive program at Roscoe Park because there's 5 or 6 kids there. So they've been great about that, and I think that's made a huge difference in the increase. And then this is just a graph or a table that kind of shows our monthly participation as well as the total. So, and that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and start on this, and then you can ask Aaron. All right, okay. Any questions from Parks and Rec? Okay,
I cannot express how awesome your whole team is. Your energy, your passion, your care. You are just such wonderful stewards of our community. You're just thank you for all the great work you do and for reaching out to kiddos and adults alike and celebrating our wonderful parks and you all go above and beyond, really the whole staff. So kudos and thanks and keep up the amazing work.
Thank you.
I'll ditto what my commissioner just said. I have 2 questions related to the trainings and then one on the camping, if that's okay, Madam Chair. For the trainings, who covers that cost, if there is a cost?
The department. Yeah.
Is that true for the California Parks Training Conference if it's not in Reno? Is like your hotel accommodation, your trip?
The
covered?
travel. Yeah,
All
correct.
covered. Oh,
Mhm.
good.
Yes.
And then on the camping issues that you've been seeing, and you noted you give resources. Do we have any public campgrounds in city limits, or is the closest like public campground, would that be like Dayton? I know when you pulled
Yeah.
those
So
lists.
typically there's the state park, Washoe Lake State Park, and then Davis Creek Regional Park. So we typically try to steer people that direction. There is some BLM off Johnson Lane, but there's really no BLM land because I think the public perception is that if it's BLM, they can camp, and that's not true. And there is signage that people can look for. They're like Carsonite signage that says no camping beyond this point. And we have a lot of those signs in Carson City BLM areas. So unfortunately, there's not any really good camping spots in Carson City. So we're typically sending them to Washoe County or Douglas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
I have a couple quick questions.
Oops, yeah.
Oh, you go, okay,
And
sorry.
then, yeah, sorry. Yeah, well,
Sorry, Molly.
okay, the next time you'll go first. All right. We'll take turns, we'll alternate. No, so first I want to ditto Commissioner Schuette's comments as well. But I firsthand received your help and I was extremely appreciative and in awe because I really didn't think anybody was going to beat me out to Eagle Valley Golf Course and Centennial Park on the 4th of July to make sure that we had that fallout zone, cautioned off, but yet there you were, and had it, much of it done before I even got out there. So I appreciate that. Then the next day, I really thought we would beat you out there for trash pickup, but then there you were. So when we got out there to do trash pickup on the 5th, much of it was done already, and I can't say how much I appreciate that, and my staff are going to say we appreciate that as well, because you guys were extremely helpful, especially in monitoring to make sure that that fire zone, so for the 4th, it was our first time having it out there, and it was really kind of like, hey, nobody really knew what was going to happen out there, but it was done, and it was done safely, and it wouldn't have been possible without the joint with Parks and Rec, Public Works, the sheriffs, the fire. But you guys played a huge part in that, and I really, really greatly appreciate all the help that you did. And I'm going to ask that you do it again in 2 weeks from now as well, because just, duplicate, it was just a great partnership, and I really appreciate that. The one thing I do have a question was, when we have events and there aren't supposed to be RV parking, are you able, and it's just a day, right? And so say there's a softball or a baseball tournament and it specifically says no RVs, 4th of July fireworks, no RVs. Are you able then to cite them, and what recourse do you have to get them to leave?
Yeah, it kind of depends, you know, on the specific situation. If it's for RV parking, like we don't have a code specific to that. Now, if the RV is staying overnight, if that's something that is decided upon with, you know, the event organizer and our parks director, then that's something that we can likely educate. If we have to escalate to making that an enforcement contact, we would probably have to get the sheriff's office involved or code enforcement. However, you know, for a lot of our areas, like our sports complexes, like Pete Livermore, a lot of families bring RVs out during the day. And if they're not staying overnight, there's really not a whole lot that we can do in that situation. We'll still make contact with them and educate them and let them know that it's a day use park. They can't stay overnight, and things of that nature. And that's similar with all of our areas because, you know, at any point you go to Mills Park, there's, you know, RVs parked and things of that nature. And we typically stop and we'll make contact with them and advise them that it's a day use park. And when we're closing up that night, we'll make sure that everybody's kind of making their way out. So
Yeah, because I just know that Parks and Rec does not want any RV parking at Upper Centennial or Lower Centennial for the 4th of July fireworks. Because one, it becomes a traffic issue. And then two, it takes away some of the parking that we were hoping to have up there as well. So
yeah, so if that's something that's decided, we'll likely
be able to
help
enforce it.
educate, you know, those individuals that are coming up there for the 4th.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And Parks and Rec is finished.
Push the button. Mary, go for it.
Oh, wait, I had a question.
Oh, well, since she already was,
I have a couple questions as well, John. The illegal dumping, are you finding that mostly in the Carson River Canyon now, or are there other places of open space that you're seeing a lot of that?
Yeah, the majority of the time it is Carson River Canyon. Also the access off of Sedge Road that takes you onto the other side of the river, as well as Prison Hill Recreation Area, you know, whether it be Coons, Clearview, the south end of Prison Hill. Typically, we're not finding those dump sites in our parks, but it does happen. But more times than not, it is in our open space areas like East Silver Saddle Ranch is another one that's kind of off the beaten path, specifically on the east side of Sierra Vista Lane, because we only have a strip that runs north-south, maybe only, you know, 400 or 500 yards to the east of Sierra Vista Lane, and then it's BLM land. So we get a lot of dump sites in there as well as Ambrose. So, yeah.
I know the canyon is a challenge, but Prison Hill is way better than it used to be since the city took
Absolutely.
it over, so that's a plus. And my second question is, the motorized vehicles that enter into the Prison Hill area where they shouldn't be, and I could be wrong about this, but how are they getting in? Because I know when you come to the top of Dead Truck Canyon, there's that hideous road that goes up towards the OHV area. Is that how they're coming in mostly? And can we do anything about that road?
So unfortunately, a lot of the dirt bikers that are going in those out of bounds areas are coming in on single track. The solution would be to completely fence Prison Hill, which is not practical. So there's a lot of different access points where people can go in where they're not supposed to, unfortunately. And honestly, a lot of those calls, we get them from the public. A lot of the reports that are in this presentation are because of, you know, people seeing something and saying something. So we get a lot of those calls and then we can respond out. It's awfully tough for us to respond from a different location and then try to track down a dirt bike or an OHV. But unfortunately, there are a lot of different access points where they can get onto Prison Hill.
And they do, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not just one area. All right, thank you.
go ahead, Aaron.
I was just curious, what's the difference between a commissioned and a non-commissioned park ranger? Does that have to do with firearms?
That is a component of it. So a commissioned park ranger is going to go through the post, like Nevada Post Academy. Typically, you're going to find your post-commissioned park rangers at the federal or state level. I've worked for a couple different municipalities and then with Colorado State Parks. And all your municipalities, typically those rangers are all non-commissioned. They look very similar to us, where we carry a lot of tools on our duty belt. However, a firearm is not one of them. So yeah, your state park rangers are all post-certified commissioned peace officers, similar at the federal level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have you seen an increase or a decrease in what I would call either illegal camping, but long-term, maybe an unhoused individual in either the Carson River Canyon or other areas of the city? Has that decreased over time in your experience?
Yeah, in the 9 years that I've been on with the city, it has certainly decreased in the canyon. I think that was the primary objective when I first got hired on with the city, and I was the open space ranger, was because Carson River Canyon was essentially a camp spot for a lot of folks, and there were people that have been back there for months or maybe even longer. So yeah, that's made a huge difference, I think, because of our presence, open space maintenance staff's presence, as well as our signage that we put up out there. So yeah, that's decreased substantially since I've been on.
A follow-up to that, if I might, Chairman. It was brought up with regard to the RV parking, and this is a completely ignorant question because I'm a newbie on the board, but would it be beneficial for us to ever consider, and this might not even be for you, it might be for the director, Dan or Jennifer or somebody, but if we are a destination area for recreation activities, whether it's a soccer tournament or it's a softball tournament, would it be beneficial for us to develop some short-term RV parking for those kinds of events in a weekend, or is that something that just you wouldn't like to consider? We don't need to have a.
To be honest, I don't feel comfortable answering that question. I'm not sure. I've worked at a couple different areas that have had campgrounds. Thanks, Lindsay.
Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager, for the record. So I know that for certain events, certain tournaments, we do allow camping, and that's something that we do on kind of a case-by-case basis, depending on the event. And that can be helpful, just, like you say, having it be a destination and bringing people in and kind of providing that accommodation. As far as, maybe developing short-term RV parking or looking at, developing more formalized camping, it is in the municipal code that camping is prohibited. So we would have to look at, modifying the municipal code. It would be something that would, have to be discussed at length, probably, with both of these boards. At this time, I don't believe we have any plans to take on those discussions. There's obviously a lot that comes with campgrounds and even short-term stays, as far as like staff and maintenance and all of those things. So I believe at this time, we don't have an appetite for that. But like I said, for certain events where it makes sense, we do allow that, and that helps kind of bridge that gap.
I can just see with our OHV gem of Northern Nevada area as an off-highway vehicle place, if we were to have activities there, it might be, you could find a place where you'd have, some toy haulers and some places where it would be good to have those. But
And actually, one of our events that we've had at the Prison Hill OHV area, it's our trials event. We have allowed camping for that event. So yeah, you're right on.
Hey, John, great presentation. I've been on the board for almost 4 years, and I'm always on vacation or out of town during this meeting. So this is the first time I got to listen to you and watch it, and it was great. Appreciate all that you guys do. Question for you: for the amount of citations that you guys deliver, this year and last year, the data was great. For the dog off leash citations, how many of those do you typically see are repeat offenders? And then what do you do if you have repeat offenders? Do you get the sheriff's office involved? Do you guys try to re-educate? What's the process typically?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just to clarify, everything that was in this presentation, that wasn't all citations. A very small amount of that was citations. We probably issue, I would say on average, maybe like 8 citations a year. So we're not citing that often. So our, kind of our whole premise behind this position and, what public perception we want of ourselves is, we're going to always educate first. And then if we have to, we're going to escalate to a citation, but more times than not, that doesn't occur. So if we're making an enforcement contact and we're obtaining that individual's information, we will document that between the 4 rangers, and we'll know if we're out with that individual again. And typically, if we're making contact 2, 3, 4 times for the same infraction or even a different violation, that's typically when we're escalating to a citation. We haven't, on very many occasions, had to bring the sheriff's office in to have them issue like an NRS citation, because typically our Carson City Municipal Code will suffice for what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So, yeah, that's a very small part of our job really is issuing citations. However, it is nice for us that we do have that ability to escalate because we do have those, repeat offenders where, they're consistently in violation, and then we can escalate and issue that citation. Yeah.
All right. Well, is everybody done? Okay, my turn then. I'm glad you asked the question about commission because that's a big deal, actually, the fact that you don't have a firearm, and that should easily explain why you have so much training. You want to make sure that your team's out there well protected and doing everything they possibly can to de-escalate and not put yourself in that position. And one thing is going to ask you, if you do write a ticket, they don't sign it, what do you do?
So when they sign the ticket, it's
If
not.
they don't sign it?
It's not an admission of guilt if
I
they sign
know
it. So
that.
we advise them that, if they don't sign it, they're still required to appear in court. And it still, ultimately gets processed with the DA's office.
So you can issue unsigned citations?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's an escalation
We-
you don't have to deal with.
Where they sign, we typically just put
Sit-
refuse to
didn't
sign,
sign.
and then we'll submit that.
That's pretty cool to understand that. So, on the dogs off leash, do you guys carry leashes with you? So what do you do when you're out in the middle of Mills Park, the dog's running nuts and you're talking to them?
Yeah, we actually do carry leashes in our
I
trucks.
wondered if you did.
Yeah,
All these little small details, you guys do such a nice job.
thank you.
Lisa, the supervisor of Shooty was right on. I mean, you guys are really fortunate to live in a town that gives you the budget and the ability to do this, plus the training is actually really important in your profession so that you're well prepared. And then I would suggest in the future, you guys should take on an interpretive role, which everybody's dream as a ranger is to be part of the education side, that you go to as much interpretive training as you do law enforcement training. Because there's not as much training in that way, but there's certainly some good conferences and trainings and interpretive societies and colleges and stuff to maybe give some more tools for your staff to do the interpretive programs because of the ability you have to do all this fun work that you guys do. And I love the word that you've embraced here is educate. That becomes like a mantra for you guys to educate. Is that you work with your staff and use that word as much as you can, I bet. Huh?
Absolutely.
That's really a strong statement for your program, actually. And so that we make sure that you guys are out safe and that you're supported entirely. And so when you guys do a park report, there's reports with you put a number on. Does a report mean you actually do a paper or a computer sheet, or is it just you put a niche on your sheet that says I've made a contact?
Yeah, so that's, we document that in something called Request Tracker. And we're really excited because Request Tracker is IT-based. So it was never designed for the generalist ranger. We're transitioning right now into a platform called Outway. The CEO is a former park ranger because a lot of these systems that law enforcement agencies use that would be more applicable to what it is that we do, they may cost $50,000, $60,000 because these law enforcement agencies have 60, 70 law enforcement officers. We don't have that luxury, so we've kind of tailored it to what, we can do. And to, get to where we're at with this report, I go individually through every RT ticket to get the data of each report. And as you saw, it's, over 1,000 reports to
That's why
go
I
through,
wondered if you had real-
through individually. So I'm really looking forward to next year's presentation, because with this new platform, it's going to take me probably 20 minutes to get through all of the reports, as opposed to, a lot longer than 20 minutes.
Good work. I don't have more to say. You guys is just great. And I love you guys coming once a year and sharing what you do, because we all absolutely are excited about how good your programs are, and what you're doing for this community is great, guys. And that goes for you guys too. So the ones out doing the work with you. So, and you're a good boss, John.
Well, I appreciate that, and we always appreciate the report and allowing us the opportunity to kind of give you a glimpse into our program, because as it's been mentioned many times tonight, we have a really great Ranger team, and the program's come a long way in the 9 years that I've been here. You mentioned the trainings. There wasn't really too many trainings when I first started, and we've really come a long way, and I think that's a testament to the team that I have, and so we're really grateful for that, and yeah, we appreciate the opportunity for this. And if you guys ever have any questions, I'm pretty easy to find, and I can dive in a little more into some of the details with this presentation. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We do have another comment, but please make sure that you reach out to both commissions if ever we can do anything to assist and support you as well. I'm glad to see you in the schools, but if there's anything more, please let us know. But
Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer has some comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'd put you on the spot here. Are you still doing ride-alongs?
If you want to do a ride-along, I would happily do a
Well, I did a
yeah.
ride-along for you, and I was just going to suggest to everybody that that is available to you, and it was a wonderful experience for me, learning what his job is, actually sitting next to him in the truck for a couple hours. It was really fun and really educational, so I just wanted to throw that out there to all the commissioners. So thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Great smile.
Great. Thank you so much.
Item 5B, for discussion only, presentation only by Carson City Trails Coordinator regarding Carson City Trails Program, Greg Berggren. Thank you, Greg. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Greg Berggren, Trails Coordinator. Usually I might do my presentation on specific trails projects that we've been doing in the community, but this time I'm going to do more of a helicopter overview of how trails benefit our community generally, and kind of a little bit about our trails program. So we'll get started here with, first of all, why does Carson City build trails? Well, Carson City recognizes that trails contribute to a vibrant economy and a healthier population. According to the American Heart Association, for every $1 invested in trails, we save $3 in medical bills. And trails provide opportunities for outdoor recreation, and they promote an active lifestyle. And here in Carson City, we have that in abundance. I think that's Supervisor Schutte in the lower photo right there. She shows up in a number of slides. Well, she's always out there running, so we. Trails foster emotional, spiritual, and social health. I think that everybody here recognizes the benefits of spending time outdoors, and we're always trying to encourage, especially children and people of every demographic, to get outdoors. There's evidence that children with ADD can benefit from spending time outdoors, and it increases their concentration and their ability to participate in school activities. And also in Carson City, of course, we have a wellness trail, which is the Foothill Trail at the behind the Cancer Center, and that was developed in conjunction with or in partnership with Carson Town Health. And trails contribute to a safer community in many ways, and this image really brings home how trails can separate pedestrians and bicycles from dangerous vehicular traffic. There's also multiple studies have not found any evidence that trails contribute to crime, and I know that sometimes that's a concern that people bring up, but in some cases, trails have been shown to actually lower crime rates. And another thing is that trails oftentimes eliminate trespass issues, and we found that to be the case many, many times in Carson City. When we build trails, people stop looking for other ways to get places, they stay on the trails. And trails break down barriers and connect people. By their nature, trails are inclusive. They're typically free to use. All of our trails in Carson City are free to use. Psychology Today says that that loneliness and trails are inversely related. And in Carson City, we believe that it's important to make sure that everybody has access to trails. And I love this photo. It shows, the main photo shows an adaptive mountain bike, a regular bicycle, and a runner all sharing our Prison Hill Trail East. And it's definitely, when I'm out on that trail or trails like that, I love seeing the diversity of people, the different ages and abilities and shapes and sizes and colors. And I think that, that's wonderful. Trails may help to protect natural resources. Trails can provide transportation alternatives. The average bike commute burns 400 calories and saves 7 to 8 pounds of carbon. So if you can ride your bike to work, yeah, I encourage you to do so. Trails can help to develop a better understanding of our environment and foster a desire to protect public lands and wildlife habitat. In Carson City, we have a ton of interpretive panels on our trails that convey typical messages or various messages about natural resources and natural history. And as has been mentioned, our Carson City Ranger programs are phenomenal, and I can't speak highly enough of our rangers and the job that they do with the programs. They oftentimes use trails, and we also have an all-terrain wheelchair available for use on many of those programs. It's been used a few times, and so that certain individuals that maybe couldn't participate are able to participate in the programs. Again, the key is to try to get everybody participating in the outdoors and taking part in that experience. Trails can help preserve our cultural heritage. Trails were the first means by which human beings traveled across the earth, and it's only been in just the last few years that we've started using trails for recreation. But I think that our fascination with trails goes back to our distant past, and trails can continue to connect us to that history. Some of our trails are historic, and many of our trails have interpretive signs or historical interpretive signs to help people understand the past history. And some of the examples of those would be Silver Saddle Ranch, the Mexican Ditch and its links to the mills and mines of the Comstock, the Washoe people, including the Goomalonga Trail, for which one of our open space properties was recently named, the history of Eagle Valley, the V&T Railroad Grade, Stewart Indian School, and the 1919 Transcontinental Convoy led by Lieutenant Colonel Dwight Eisenhower, to name just a few of the signs that exist in various places on our trails. Trails can be part of a resilient community. It's a relatively new concept that was included in our 2023 Prison Hill Master Plan. And the idea is that through planning and engineering, trails may be able to play a role in mitigating some of the effects of climate change in a variety of ways, like better managing stormwater runoff, creating fuel breaks and routes for both emergency access and for public evacuation, and providing transportation alternatives. And the Federal Highway Administration included Carson City as case studies in two of their publications. One was Trails as Resilient Infrastructure, and the other one, The Role of Trails in Climate Resilience and Emergency Response. And trails promote economic vitality. We've talked a little bit about some of the events in Carson City, and trails attract a number of events to Carson City. And we have people that come from out of town and stay here to participate in events. According to the National Association of Home Builders, trails are the most desired community amenity that homeowners seek when buying a home. The proximity of trails increases the value or the resale value of a home. And lastly, our residents demand trails. When, during the listing sessions for the 2025 master plan update, the access to outdoor recreation, which was parks, trails, and open space, was one of the 4 favorite things about Carson City. And they said that they repeatedly said they wanted more trails. And so the adopted master plan includes these guiding principles. One of them is access to open lands and recreational opportunities. And the other is a connected community, which is part of the safe and efficient multimodal transportation system, complete streets, connected trails, and pathways. So a little bit about our trails program. Within the boundary of Carson City, we have over 100 miles of trails, and that includes over 50 miles of single-track trails. Single-track trails are primarily for recreation. Our trails have all kinds of different difficulty levels. We've got long-distance trails that are quite remote. We have trails that have a lot of technical features, and then we also have trails, single-track trails that are wide enough to accommodate adaptive mountain bikes. So we have hopefully something for everybody among the single-track trail field. And in the last 10 to 15 years, we are now building trails to standards, and we use typically the U.S. Forest Service Handbook or the International Mountain Biking Association, IMBA standards, to build our trails. And so they are sustainable for the long term. And we have over 15 miles of accessible double track trails. Again, the primary purpose of these is recreation. And I wanted to define an accessible trail, which is a barrier-free trail that is usable by people of various disabilities, including those with mobility devices. So accessibility or an accessible trail is not necessarily ADA compliant. And I know we oftentimes get those confused. A sidewalk is ADA compliant. ADA compliance usually entails pavement, especially concrete. So from my experience, since I've been in this job in talking to people like adaptive users, many of them want an experience that is outside of the paved network. They want something that takes them closer to, to a different experience. And so we're finding more and more people that are enjoying these types of trails. And this photo is of our Prison Hill Trail West, which we just did the ribbon cutting for on Saturday, and that was a great event. We are building these trails to standards again. It's AASHTO standards, the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. We use the Guide for Development of Bicycle Facilities, which generally recommends the trail be at least 10 feet or a minimum of 10 feet wide and up to 14 feet wide. And in Carson City, we have over 25 miles of paved trails. And these are generally public works projects, and they're an integral part of Carson City's transportation infrastructure. They support the concept of a connected community, complete streets. They provide alternative means of access to our downtown corridor, and sometimes provide access to our unpaved trails and our open space properties. And again, these trails are built to AASHTO standards. We have in Carson City over 25 miles of off-highway vehicle trails, and this is just the ones now that Carson City manages. Obviously, we have many, many more miles on the federal lands, but Carson City is unique in that we do manage an OHV area. It's really hard to find, if you even can find, another municipality that manages an OHV area. And our OHV area it provides a family-friendly environment that has opportunities for just about everybody. We've got opportunities for dirt bikes, trials bikes, Jeeps, side-by-sides, and rock crawlers. And we also maintain a portion of the Kings Canyon Road, even though that's on Forest Service property. And we maintain all of the Ash Canyon Road, which some of that's on city property, some of it's private, some of it's Forest Service, but that's another one that we manage. And then, of course, we have a 14-mile aquatic trail. And again, not every community has an aquatic trail. And our aquatic trail has opportunities for both flat water and whitewater. It was designated in 2007, and I believe, Member Kimbrough, you were part of that. Am I correct? Yeah, yep, okay. So how do trails get built? It starts with planning, and planning for trails in Carson City goes back as far as 1995 with the Eagle Valley Trails Plan. The big one for us, of course, is the Unified Pathways Master Plan. And Carson City was one of, if not the first community in the state of Nevada to have a formalized trail plan. And it's been so valuable to us in providing that conceptual roadmap for our trail development, in preventing loss of access to public lands. A lot of other communities now are developing their own trails plans. They recognize the value in that. So once we get from concept to actually starting to create an alignment, there's a lot of field work that needs to be done in the layout design, working through clearances. Oftentimes we have to do NEPA or be in compliance with the National Historic Preservation Act. Oftentimes it involves public meetings to discuss plans. And then oftentimes it also involves working with landowners on easements and agreements. And partnerships are critical. And these are just a few of the people that we partner with to get trails built within Carson City. Almost every trail project requires partnerships. And then once we go to start building the trails, oftentimes we need funding. And one of the sources that we go to is the Recreational Trails Program, which is it's an assistance program from the Federal Highway Administration that provides funds to develop and maintain trails, and it comes from the federal highway tax. And Carson City has 3 projects that have received national awards for our use of the Recreational Trails Program funds: the Ash to Kings Trail, the Fifth Street Trailhead and Trails, and the Capital of Tahoe Trail. Another funding source is the Federal Lands Access Program grants, or FLAP grants, and we have used those to develop trailheads along Sierra Vista Lane, the Sand Canyon Trailhead, and the East Silver Saddle Ranch Trailhead. We used it for the Kings Canyon Trailhead, and excitingly, we are going to be using it to develop an Ash Canyon Trailhead in the next couple of years. So something that we really need on the west side of town. And then one of our really big funders has been the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, or SNPLMA. And not every county in the state of Nevada is eligible for these funds, but the funds come from that program authorizes the sale of federal lands in Southern Nevada, and the proceeds are used for projects throughout the state. And in Carson City, we have been fortunate to have had a number of SNPLMA projects. If you bring it all the way up to the Mills Park Master Plan implementation, which is forthcoming, we will have received $24 million in total funding over the years. So yeah, that's a great one. And then most importantly, trails depend upon volunteers and community support. Besides the fact that volunteers build and maintain a lot of our single track trails, I think that Carson City has been successful in obtaining funding because we can demonstrate that we have a volunteer network to maintain trails after they're built. We have a plan. We have the Unified Masters Plan. We have a Prison Hill Master Plan. We have planning to demonstrate that we know what we want to do and how we want to do it. And so that's been very helpful in gaining funding. So putting it all together, the Capital to Tahoe Trail was really a case study in community partnerships. And It was completed in 2023 after an 8-year effort led by Muscle Powered. The NEPA and the cultural resource studies were funded by Visit Carson City. Engineering for the bridge construction was donated, and the cultural resource surveys were discounted. Construction was funded by a grant from the Recreational Trails Program with match from the Quality of Life Initiative. And it was also supported by volunteer efforts for some of the segments. And other partners included the Nevada State Parks, U.S. Forest Service, and a private landowner who gave us an easement. So lots of community support. First single-track connection from Carson City to the Tahoe Rim Trail and by extension to the Pacific Crest Trail. And when we made Visit Carson City aware of that, they came up with an idea. And it was actually Lydia Beck from Visit Carson City that proposed the Carson City to Canada Quest. So that program, 1,600 miles, $5,000 to each of the first 2 people to leave the steps of the Capitol and hike all the way to Canada. It was, Visit Carson City did not use any additional funding to advertise that. They just used their regular PR budget. And so far, we have generated more than 120 news stories. For example, KCRA Radio in Sacramento, the LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Outside Magazine, Backpacker, Yahoo, several international travel publications. We had over 360 applicants from around the world that applied for the quest. We went through the applications, narrowed that down to a few people that were interviewed. We came up with two finalists they both happen to be from the state of Colorado, and they will be departing from the steps of the Capitol in the next few weeks and starting their journey. And we don't release the date, the exact date they're going to leave for their own safety, but it will be soon. And that will continue to generate more and more PR for Carson City for the next few months as they make their way to Canada. And we'll be able to follow them on social media or the Visit Carson City website. So you'll stay tuned. That'll be exciting. Bottom line is, it takes a community to build trails, and trails build community. And I was going to end my slideshow here, but then I thought, there's an issue, well, not an issue, but there's a lot of questions that come up about e-bikes. And so I thought it might be a good opportunity to address both the committee and the commission on e-bikes. So what is an e-bike? And under the state of Nevada revised statutes, an e-bike is defined as a device upon which a person may ride, having 2 or 3 wheels, fully operable pedals, a seat for a rider, and a motor that does not produce more than 750 watts and meets one of 3 classes. So class 1 is the motor aids only when the rider is pedaling, and assist is limited to 20 miles an hour. Class 2, the motor may be used exclusively. In other words, it has a throttle, and assistance is limited to 20 miles an hour. And class 3, the motor aids only when the rider is pedaling, and the assist is limited to 28 miles an hour. So it's just like a class 1, but it allows it to go a little bit faster. Now, where may e-bikes be ridden? So Nevada law generally allows e-bikes to be ridden in places where bicycles are allowed, including streets, highways, roads, roadways, bicycle lanes, bicycle paths, and shared use paths. There are some exceptions. Federal law may override state law, and generally e-bikes are not allowed on trails that cross federal lands, but in many cases, the federal landowners are starting to approve trails for class 1 e-bikes. Local authorities may also prohibit use on shared use paths under certain prescribed circumstances, and local authorities may also regulate use on natural surface trails. So in Carson City, we don't have an ordinance related to e-bikes, so we defer to the NRS. And now I want to ask the committee members and commissioners, because there is a lot of confusion about e-bikes. So of the 5 bicycles or the 5 devices that you see here, which ones are e-bikes and which ones are not? Well, as defined by the NRS. Well, it's, okay, that's not a trick. It wasn't meant to be a trick. That was just, the image that I found was of a new bike that didn't have pedals on it yet, so it's not a trick. Yeah, you gotta buy your own pedals separately. This is a high-end bike. So you're saying which ones? That's correct. Yep. So number one is a high-end e-mountain bike. Number two is an adaptive e-mountain bike. Number five is an e-road bike. Number three and number four are oftentimes marketed as e-bikes because they have pedals, but they have up to 3,000 watts of power, and some of them go over 40 miles an hour, and they probably weigh 100 pounds. So there's confusion out there on behalf of the public as to really what is an e-bike. And if you are sold a machine like 3 or 4 and they said, well, it's an e-bike, it's got pedals, maybe it's not. It doesn't fit the definition under the NRS. So I think, really, as a community, we probably need to start looking at, the technology and the marketing is way ahead of where our understanding and where our regulations are. And I think that e-bikes are accounting for a huge percentage of sales. So they're here to stay. And we need to kind of figure out how we want to manage them. And do we need an ordinance? How do we educate people about where they can ride and what they can ride? How do we instill ethics and develop courtesy among users? We have some programs in place in Carson City. We have share the trail messaging on all of our new kiosk signage. We have a courtesy triangle on a lot of our kiosk signage, and we have a share the trail video with the QR code that we have QR code links to that video. So, we're trying to get some of the messaging out there, but there's, we probably still have a ways to go. And so I'm not bringing in any suggestions tonight, but just planting the seed in all of your minds about, we probably need to think about looking at this closely. So anyway, thank you. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have.
Okay, we'll start on this side, huh? Right. Good job, Greg. Keith, anything to say? You got an e-bike?
Not yet,
No.
but I guess I better be careful. No, great job, Greg. You guys are doing a great job, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing. And John left, I guess, and I was going to say if we do pass an ordinance, it's going to become an enforcement issue, right? And is that going to be a ranger thing to enforce the e-bike? When that comes into play, if it was an enforcement issue. But.
I mean, yeah, that's certainly possible. And I think, as I mentioned, the e-bikes are here to stay. And I'm not advocating at all for not allowing them. I'm just saying that they probably need to be managed in some locations. And I think that anything that we do would need to be a result of a lot of community input. We would need to have, we would need to have questionnaires and meetings and open houses, and we need a lot of community input. Like I say, they're here to stay. I have an e-bike. I love it. It's a Class 1 e-bike, and it's opened up a whole new world for me. But I think what we got to be careful about is what we're allowing and where. And when we look at some of those machines, when I see somebody moving very rapidly down a trail and they're not pedaling, that really disturbs me. And it could be an enforcement issue, and but I think a lot of it is education.
Right. As a follow-up, are you seeing any maintenance issues, any wear and tear on our trails from e-bikes right now that give you any concern, either some of the newer trails around Prison Hill, any of those surfaces, or are they being impacted by?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that's often asked. And so a lot of the, I mean, I'm not seeing that, and a lot of the research indicates that e-bikes don't contribute to more trail wear than a traditional bike, mile for mile. But of course, e-bikes allow people to go a lot more miles. And it gets more people out on the trails on bicycles. So there is additional use that way, but we encourage use. And use is not a bad thing. And we can manage for that, and we can maintain for that. I think it's great if people are out using the trails, and so we can deal with it. But as far as excessive damage, no, I'm not seeing that. I think that when you get into some of those more powerful machines with a throttle, it's kind of like having an electric motorcycle or something. If you're from a stopped position, if you hit the throttle real fast, you can dig a hole. And we have seen some of that, but I don't think it's coming from, your traditional legally defined e-bike. I think it's coming from other machines.
Duncan? Anything? No? Mary?
This might be a question for Mariana, but the Desert Peach Trail is overgrown in certain areas, and I feel like I'm talking about sheep a lot in these last couple of meetings. I don't know, do sheep eat tumbleweeds?
No, good question. And yeah, no, I know that I'm familiar with that. In fact, I was on Desert Peach yesterday, and it's where the trail goes through the burn scar, and the tumble mustard it's grown. It's 2 and sometimes 3 feet high, and sometimes it's actually covering the trail. And it's amazing because we just built that trail a year ago, and it was built through mechanized means, so it was like 4 feet wide, and now it's already narrowed that much. So I was going to I'm going to meet with our maintenance staff and see if we can do a little bit of weed whacking along that trail. Hopefully over time, as the burn scar starts to heal and the natives come back, then we hopefully will see a reduction in that problem. But I'll let Rena talk.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Marina Lovejoy, Senior Natural Resource Specialist for the record. Specific to getting sheep out on Prison Hill, that's something that we have thought about. There's a lot of logistics that go into the sheep project. For instance, as we've talked about earlier, camping, the shepherds need to be camped out with the sheep every single night. And there's not a way to get the shepherds' trailers up into areas of Prison Hill. But we're thinking about it. We've talked about this with the rancher. He's thinking about it as well. Maybe, but that's not in the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Maybe they need an e-bike.
Yeah, with towing a little trailer, sure.
Thank you. And I know you're working on it. I just got my legs whipped this morning, so going down that thing.
Sam?
No, I'm all good. Great
Okay.
presentation. I appreciated the false ending there, with the thank you and then the e-bike transition. So thanks for keeping us on our toes.
I would concur. Our trail system is so important to all communities, especially Carson City, for so many reasons. For connectivity and safe routes to schools, like you mentioned. And we have such a diverse trail system. Like you said, most communities don't have aquatic trails. They don't have off-road vehicle trails. Regarding the e-bike question, I think my input would be that we put a speed threshold. So regardless of what size the engine is, what is it capable of? So there's a speed limit on the trail system. That's how they've done it in other communities I lived and worked for. And I just wanted to applaud you for pointing out the other types of trails and the importance of designing and maintaining and using service roads and fire roads and flood control, stormwater runoff, using those kinds of engineered designs as trail systems. And it's just another layer of the great part of living you know, in this area, I love riding my off-road vehicle up Ash Canyon and up Kings Canyon to Spooner Summit. So there's so many opportunities, but I think that's really great that you pointed that out, because I don't think a lot of people think about that when they think about trails. They focus on recreation and thank you. That's it.
My turn. So actually, I'd asked Greg a while ago to make a presentation on trails, and it came after a project at a multi-use trail. I call them class 4s, but Carson doesn't necessarily have to do it, but it's a multiple use trail. And they kept using the word road. Road, 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 road. And they were moving the audience and even the planning commission into this road. It's a trail. Certainly a car can drive on it because it's wide enough. It's no more a road than a paved pathway that's separated from the highway, like he showed a picture of the multi-use paved pathways. You don't drive cars on that. So the idea was, hopefully, is to encourage somehow this presentation get to the planning commission, because people don't know what trails are. His presentation could actually go to a national conference. It's that level of what he did here. So hopefully he gets a chance to, maybe at the next trails conference the STC has or somebody, to save that presentation, because it really highlights how trails are part of this community and what role they play. It's everything you want to tell people that don't understand trails very much. So I thought that was really important. I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to go to the planning commission, because their agendas are jam-packed full of many more things than when I was on there. But to educate people that those are not roads, and never use the word road, and it erases itself. But and then the fact that all this work, this is a town of 50,000 people. This is phenomenal. I mean, that you have a trail system in a town that size, thanks to people passing a bond, being a tax issue, to start this ball rolling. And you guys just, it's like a snowball. You guys help move it right on down the hill and it grows. So the figures you give are phenomenal. That's what makes a national presentation, to tell other communities. I know you've done that before, is address how that tax has grown this program so significantly. So I think that's really important. And then the flap grants, you need to remind people that that came on the transportation side. So there's confusion about that too. So Parks doesn't manage those, RTC does, and they're the ones who apply for the funds. So we got to applaud RTC, because they're moving the same direction. They don't have to. They're doing it out of their own will to add to this program in this community. So they need to get credit for that too. So I love that page where he showed the partners on the trails. I mean, like 50 groups up there, and it's true. There's a super amount of collaboration. And I got to give Greg some huge accolades, because this program's grown on his watch. Totally. His program's been growing and changing the signage, the trails, and where they're at, and making sure the plan's carried out, looking for the grants, working with Muscle Powered. Huge, huge effort on Greg's part to put them where they're at. And if you put at the end of your slideshow, you need to take credit for the fact that a lot of that work that you're talking about, you were not necessarily totally responsible for, but the guiding light and helping and support everything that was needed to take place. So, and Lindsay's back there shaking her head like this. Yes. She'll tell you later how much she appreciates that. So I've given you accolades before, but I thought, and then on another side note here, is this Carson to Canada. I thought for sure if somehow you tried to finagle away that you needed to go to make sure they didn't cheat and jump in a car, or that staff needed to go to supervise this trip. Your wife might not agree with that.
I'll have to talk to my boss.
I do have to ask, is that her? Yeah. Is that her in the picture?
That's my wife,
Yeah, I thought so. Well, okay, I was thinking that we were referring to the boss of the house, so sorry.
So then I'm going to ask you one last question. Do you ride a bike to work?
In good weather, I ride a bike as often as I can. I only drive when I have to do something.
So you walk
can't
the
ride
talk, we call it. Good job, Greg.
Ride the talk.
Yeah, you ride the talk. There you go. Hey, I got nothing else to add other than thanks, Greg. Great presentation. Thanks for putting that all together. That was a lot of work, actually. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll go ahead and start with Parks and Rec then. We'll start with the end. Commissioner Roberts? Okay, next.
Yeah, I just really enjoy all of the trails. My wife hiked the capital of the Tahoe Trail like last month, and it was like a snow area. So it was pretty easy to navigate even with the snow and all the online apps and things. So it's all accessible, really fun. I do agree with the speed limit. The sign showed that bikes are supposed to yield to people and to horses, but most of the time it's the person that yields to the bike, and I just that can be a concerning thing when they come up quick behind you. And but other than that, I learned a lot about e-bikes, and I've been thinking about getting one lately. So
Thank you for the presentation, and I agree 100%. I think going to the Planning Commission would be an excellent idea. You know, as you were speaking, and Mark spoke to this a little bit, but what came to mind is, you know, trail variety really is collaboration at its best. It brings people together. It's that connectivity, and it's also that interdepartmental opportunities. You know, the public works working with Parks and Rec, the health component, all of that. And so I think this what you and the whole department and our open space, what we've been able to accomplish is phenomenal. So thank you.
I might just hold it up like this, kind of fun. I 100% agree with the accolades. The community connection portion, and this is something that I've talked about on record here with Parks and Rec previously. You know, one thing that I'd really like to see with the trails, and this goes back to, you know, you brought up heritage. I would love to be able to just send my child to the park, to the store, to her school. She's 4, right? And in other countries, you can do that. We can't here, right? And I know we have made such great progress towards making Carson a walkable city, but it's only walkable if you're an adult, if you can navigate. And I would love to see safe trails connecting all of our community spaces, like our schools, our community center, the library, you know, get to our parks so that kids can go outside and not, the picture with the truck freaks me out. I hate them. It's so scary to think about. And I've shown my daughter, you know, these cars can't see you. Stand right here. They can't see you. So I would really love to see that as part of our master plan, really truly connecting our community for more than just recreational purposes, but for all purposes. And then just personally, I was there in 2019 at the legislature when they added all of the classes for the e-bikes. And the discussion at the legislature, you know, they talked about putting this into state law so that we didn't end up with a lot of individual rules in each different city and county. And we would run into that here in Carson as well, right? We have a lot of folks who ride from Carson to Douglas, to Lyon, to Story, to Washoe, over to California. And so just wanting to make sure that we're not limiting who can come here, we're not unnecessarily penalizing people, we're not shutting out that, you know, it's a burgeoning business, it's huge. So just making sure that we're being good neighbors and making sure that we're keeping our friends active and happy. So thank you.
Thanks for what you, your staff, all your volunteers do. I try to use the benefits of it almost every day. So, and you're right, as far as social and seeing the same people on the trail every day and learning their names and their dogs' names, and it's just wonderful. So, great addition to the Parks and Recreation staff.
All right, great, thank you. So yes, great presentation. I think every time you present, there's something we all learn a little bit different, so there's always something new, and I greatly appreciate that. So for the end of, you know, I mean, as a representative of the school board on this commission, is there anything, and you don't have, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I would, you know, greatly appreciate you reaching out if there's anything that I can do to help bring the education to the schools. You know, we did the the park ranger, and I think that's great because I would like to see more families using the trails, recreational wise, getting it out there. And I just don't know that we aren't, I mean, not we, but I mean the families, that they're just not aware of what is all out there. That, you know, you see the one where it was the multipath that's right out by Fremont, you know, so they see that, but I'm not quite sure that the education is there when you have the younger, families and stuff. And so if there's anything I can do to help, whether or not we do a Saturday, event and we push it out to the schools a little more, I think that would be something that I can help with. So I'm just throwing myself out there to say
Yeah, no,
anything
thank
I
you for
can
that,
to help.
and I appreciate that, and I think we should, you and I should talk and figure out what, a plan. Okay.
You gonna introduce the next one?
So I think, do you have anything more to add? All right, well, thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it. And the work you put on the presentation. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5C for discussion only. This is a presentation only to review the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Department's memorial program, including review of the memorial's website and brochure. This is going to be presented by Marina Lovejoy and Aaron Larson. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Hi, everyone. Marina Lovejoy, Senior Natural Resource Specialist for the record. And with me, I have Aaron Larson, our volunteer coordinator. And we are here to share with you a project that's been a long time coming. Aaron and I, over the last year, worked to build a website and a brochure for the memorials policy. Erin designed the brochure and built the website. She has that skill set. And I built an interactive map and organized all the spatial data that we will see here in a second. So to refresh everyone's memory, the memorials policy was brought forth to OSAC and PRC back in July 2022. And then the board approved the memorials policy in September of 2022. So to accompany that policy, like I said, we've built this website to be a one-stop shop for the public interested in donating a memorial in honor of a loved one at one of our parks, trails, or open spaces. So now I'll pass it to Erin to show you through the website.
Awesome. Erin Larson, volunteer coordinator for the record. So I'm going to walk us through the webpage that we built, but first, how to get there. So this is our Parks and Recreation homepage. It's carson.org/Parks and Rec for easy reference. Once you're on this page, if you go to About Us, you get this really nice side navigation. Under here, you can find brochures, forms, maps, master plans, and reports. This contains a lot of information, but if you scroll down, you'll see a policies section, and you'll see memorials policy right here. When you click on memorials policy, you have access to do memorials homepage, which is the website we'll look at, as well as the memorials policy and the application. So you can access all of those on this page. Another way to get here that I would recommend personally is to go to carson.org and use the search bar and just type in memorials policy. And this page will be the first one that comes up. So that's another way to access it easily. So then the website that we built. So when you open it up, you get this nice title page and picture. Going down, our first section is just a brief overview of some important factors in the policy. So what the policy is there for, certain amenities that you can donate / plant if you choose trees, what to expect when working with our department and how to move forward, as well as some financial responsibility information. At this top section, you can also find the application link right here, as well as the policy, which you'll see throughout the website. As I scroll down to the next section, you'll also notice up top that there is this super helpful tool that scrolls with you that as you're reading, you can decide to go to different sections of the web page. So if you're reading through and decide you already know where you want to go, it scrolls down with you. This next section talks about how you would go about planting a tree and or donating any of the park amenities. It's super easy to do. You fill out an application, either online, it's a fillable PDF, or you can print it out and mail it. And then there's the email address as well as the mailing address on there. And again, there's another link to the application. Below that, you can find some estimated pricing information based on previously donated items. So of course, these are subject to change depending on the item that you're donating, as well as price increases. But these are just some general references as people are thinking about it. A little bit further down, you'll find types of memorial trees that we allow for donation. And so we've got some images of the trees. If you click on an image, it describes the name of the tree, and you can kind of click through those images and see which ones that we allow in our parks and open spaces. If you don't want to click on the images, there's also a list below that includes the botanical names. So a couple different ways to reference that. Below that, it kind of talks about where people have donated trees and where we recommend trees to be donated. Right now, our top 2 locations are Lone Mountain Cemetery and Mills Park. We already have several donated memorial trees in there, and that's usually where we recommend people donate more. Another option outside of trees is park amenities. So that would be park benches, picnic tables, shade structures, dugouts, things like that. In the section, it talks about where we already have donated park amenities, as well as, again, where we recommend people place them. A majority of these are benches right now, and each one gets a little plaque on the bench or amenity, which you can kind of see in this picture here. The 2 other options for memorials are monetary donations and endowments, which can be made directly to Carson City or to our nonprofit partner, the Foundation for Parks and Recreation. And the second option is our volunteer adoption program. So this program, we would donate the signage for the volunteer group that wants to adopt a trail or park. And they would commit to at least 2 volunteer events per year. And so that's a great way for that group to not only give back to the community, but kind of honor their loved one in that way. And so the signage kind of looks like this. Insert your group's or your loved one's name. And then I'm going to scroll down to our interactive map and pass it off to our fabulous map creator, Marina.
Yeah, so this whole website was built with an Esri platform called StoryMap. And then integrated in here is this nice interactive map, and you can see here we have this nice legend. So I'll show you in red, we have all of our open spaces. And then in blue, we have our parks. So let me click on this bench over here in the Lakeview area. And you can see this particular memorial is a bench. It was donated in 2021. And the plaque says, in loving memory, etc. And then another location where we have a lot of memorials is Mills Park. We have the ALS Memorial Grove. And so if I were to click on a tree, I can see that this is a Brandywine maple. It was planted in June 2005, and it's part of the Mills Park ALS Grove. There's other information that we could include, definitely open to feedback from you all on how we could improve this website or this map, but this is a good starting place for the public. One really neat feature as well is if you were to access this website on your smartphone, you could navigate to this map and see yourself in real time and kind of go through a little self-guided tour. Yeah, definitely. For sure. Yeah. So that's all that we wanted to share with the website. I'll pass it back to Erin to talk about the brochure that accompanies this.
So you may have the brochure in front of you. But the brochure reiterates a lot of the information from the website. So it's got all the information about memorial trees, and it's got pictures of the trees that you can donate or plant, as well as some information on the park amenities. And then on the backside contains the location information, as well as a QR code that goes directly to this site. So very easy to use, very brief and informational, and a good way to hand out to the public. And there's no quiz at the end like Greg's.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with the Parks and Rec Commission. We'll start on this end and then head down.
Oh,
Uh,
you're starting with me.
I am. I'm
I
going to
haven't
start with
generated my
you.
question.
Okay, well,
Thank you
guess
for
what?
your
You're on the
present-
spot.
Quick-minded here.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm a volunteer death doula, so I hang out in this space a lot, and I appreciate how well planned the website is. I love the memorial map. I think that is, I mean, that's amazing. We could basically do our own historical self-guided tours of the important folks in our community. 100% love it. My question is on the trees that you picked, that were picked for memorials. I see on there the Bradford pear, the flowering pear, which is invasive in most of the country, and I am just curious why that's on there. And I didn't see any of the like pinyon pine, juniper, Douglas fir, like the native northern Nevada trees. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Marina Lovejoy, I can't talk about that very well. I wasn't involved with tree selection. That would be more a Jen Budge question. But my understanding is that these trees do well in our irrigated, ornamental landscapes. But that's a great point. I will definitely pass that along. I'll pass it to Lindsay.
Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager, for the record. I'll take a stab at that, and then ultimately we'll follow up with you. I know that within Carson City, we have kind of an approved tree list, and that's been kind of developed and used over time. So I'm not sure exactly the history of why certain species were selected or included, but that's what we base this on. So I'll make a note to follow up with our Parks Project Manager, who's really familiar with kind of the tree selection and that process, and then we'll shoot you guys an email to clarify why certain species were included. But that's a great question.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been watching the Bradford pear, flowering pear issue since college when I was introduced to the pungent, fragrant smell of that tree. And it's definitely an issue. And I would love to see, some of we have 2 straight state trees and neither of those are listed as potential memorial trees. So that kind of, I would love to see more of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Schutte, we're going down that way.
People ask me all the time how they can get involved and they'd like to donate in memory of. And so this was a wonderful presentation because it is appreciated by the public and will be. So thank you.
I really like the map too. I'm sure a lot of people who have family on the other side of the country or far away can look and see like, oh, that's mom's tree or dad's tree or whoever. One idea I had, well, 2, to kind of piggyback on the tree idea. I'm assuming that they're on the B city list, hopefully, just for the note. But another idea is I live near Sonoma Dog Park, and so many people love their dog and put something out. And while I was thinking about that, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would want a memorial plaque along the fence or something similar to the East Shore Trail in Tahoe that they have the fish. I think that would be a good revenue generator, especially with the new Mills Park pitch for the dog park. I'm sure that'd bring in a good amount of money, but I love it.
And I'm not concerned. I'm just wondering if this is even the same category. I know, just as an ex-representative of Carson Tennis Club, there were ladies that say, we're just going to put a mini bench on these courts for so-and-so that had passed away. And I think I spoke with Jennifer, but it's like you just can't go into a facility and, you want to put a plaque up. And is that part of what has to go through a committee like yours? I mean, sort of like the bricks would be a great idea.
Just so I understand your question, are you kind of asking about the process? Like, people would have to fill out an application and then we would kind of work with them hand in hand to decide if that location that they were proposing was appropriate, if that particular amenity or tree or whatever is appropriate for that specific location. But we certainly wouldn't want to turn anyone or their ideas away. We would just help guide them to the best location. Is
No,
that
it
kind
wasn't
of?
about the application, just I know that that community, the tennis community that was here, just, we got a plaque out at the courts for years about a fellow that passed away in a car accident, but it's still there. But I just know some of these people, maybe not just the tennis or whatever community, think they can just, go put a little plaque anywhere they like in the city. So I'm glad there's guidelines for that.
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So as Marina mentioned, this policy was adopted a few years ago. And so the whole kind of reason why we did that policy was to create a framework so that when people did want to do something, we had the application, we had kind of thought through and had an approved process, vetted by these committees for where that can happen and how. And so that was kind of the reason why we did that. So, there could be historic things out there that were done before that policy was created. But moving forward, we now have the framework, we've got the website, we've got all the information out, the brochure, the application. So that was this was the final piece to cement our formal memorial program.
Thank you, and I appreciate your demonstration here, and it's quite interesting, the map that you can do, and for anywhere. That's pretty neat. Thank you.
Great. Well, all right.
Sorry. Last one. The prices on there, are those like a forever price, or is there like an annual upgrade or?
Yeah, good question. No, this is just a rough cost estimate based on items that people have donated, right? And it's on the person donating to pay, right? Unless it's that adopt a trail sign. So this is just a rough guess for people to kind of get a sense of what a cost for, like, a bench or a plaque would be. We didn't incorporate the cost of trees because those are highly variable depending on the type and the size and where you're getting it from. So as we get more data and more requests, perhaps we can include more information on the website. But yeah, subject to change for sure.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So I don't know if you would be able to do this or not because it is a city website, but it is hard to find. And I don't know that if you do go to the landing page of the Parks and Rec and Open Space, you have the 10, different squares. And so adding one would totally put it off kilter. But if there would be possible to add a square that says, ways to support or ways to give, because even to try to find the foundation is hard as well. And I don't know if there would be a possibility to add something on the landing page of the Parks and Rec and Open Space to where it might be a little bit easier. And I see that you are biting your tongue.
For the record, Erin Larson. Yes, the website is a bit challenging at times to work on. This particular web page is designed through Story Maps, ArcGIS, and so linking to the main pages is a little more difficult because and it is possible for sure. The reason it's not actively right now is because it's on a different design platform, and our main government website prefers us to navigate to other website pages under that platform. So it's a little bit more challenging, but definitely possible to put on that main page as like a separate link perhaps, but not a box per se.
Well, and I guess my foresight on this is not just going to that, but, for Parks and Rec to have a support us, or ways to support, or ways to give, ways to donate, something on that end that would bring it. So then you click on that little box on that, and then it brings it to all of the different, platforms and ways, just because it is a little difficult to find. Yeah, but great, thank you.
And one more thing on that as well is people are always welcome to call our main office as well, and we're happy to help get them on the right page, because we know navigating through our website to any page can be a challenge sometimes. So calling our office, and we're happy to help as well.
And then just lastly, just because you're sitting there, I want to go ahead and give you a shout out for your help with the cemetery, with the Rotary's, Rotary Carson Cities project. You were extremely helpful, and I know the day turned out to be fantastic. So we just drive by and hope that the plants continue to grow. So, but thank you for your help.
Our turn. We'll start from this side, Aaron, this time.
Yes, kudos to your amazing computer talents. I know Esri ArcGIS is not an easy software to learn how to use, and it is proprietary. And I don't know a lot about it, but I understand what you're saying, that you have to leave the government-approved website to get to the map, and there are potential security issues, et cetera, that you have to take into consideration when you're redesigning the website. I was looking, a couple things. I think I mentioned to you guys when we were on private conversation that when I worked as the park planner for the city of San Clemente, we came up with a similar program that we called the CARE program, which was an acronym for Celebrate, Acknowledge, Remember, and Enhance. So it wasn't just a memorial, it was another opportunity, like if you wanted to say, hey, congratulations for graduating, or whatever, you could do that too. And regarding the cost of the amenities, the park amenities have a useful life. Like there is a time frame for each physical amenity that will outlive its useful life. So you say, hey, this, picnic bench, just throwing this number out there, is $1,200 for a period of 3 years or 5 years. And you, family who purchased this $1,200 park bench, have the right of first refusal when the park bench outlives its useful life, if you wish to re-up and repurchase that same park bench in that same location. Because some people are very attached to their grandfather used to love to sit here and look at this view or what have you. That's just a suggestion. And I was looking at the tree list, and like you said, I know it's a Jennifer question, but I was looking at this earlier today because I was very interested in purchasing several trees. Unfortunately, our family has had several people pass away recently, but I noticed that those are the same species that have been struggling, and I just assumed that that's why those were the trees that were chosen. But so I had two questions, like, should we wait until we figure out what's going on with the struggling trees before we plant new trees? And the second question is regarding the Mills Park. Are the trees going to go into the new locations for the new design of the park? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna wait until we redo Mills Park to plant more trees there, or are you suggesting we plant trees there now and then move them later?
Excellent questions. Lindsay Boyer for the record. So that's a really good observation that there may be a correlation between some of the ones that have been struggling and some of the ones that have been planted. I think probably what that comes down to is we have this list of trees that we planted.
Sure.
That's what we've been pulling from for, 20 years. And then for whatever reason, like Dan had said, there's, we're investigating, but those trees are struggling. And so that may be a factor in this whole kind of urban forestry project is maybe it's an issue with certain species and we need to take a look at that. Or perhaps it's totally environmental, not related to the species at all. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more investigation to go there before we can fully determine that. I think we can provide some additional information related to that when I follow up with the information from our Parks Project Manager just about the tree selection and how
Okay.
that all came to fruition.
Yeah, because he and I were talking offline. He actually provided the list to me of the trees that are struggling. That's why I noticed that a lot of them are the same.
The same, yeah.
And is there an urban forest master plan? Is that something that we should look at to see if we should revise that tree list? Would be my other comment.
Yeah, at this time, we don't have an urban forest master plan. I believe kind of the tree list, the tree specifications are encompassed in Title 18, which is one of our municipal codes related to development. I know that it's something our department has been looking at, wanting an urban forestry plan and wanting an urban forester position as well. So, you know, tree health, tree management is very much on the forefront of our minds and something that we're working towards. And then as far as your Mills Park question, a part of that Mills Park Master Plan implementation project will be identifying trees that are already there, you know, creating tree buffer zones, making sure we preserve and protect all the trees that are there. And then part of that project does include planting of more trees. We're several years out from implementation on that project, so we'll have hopefully worked through the tree
Sure.
issue
I
that
would
we're
just be
currently
careful
experiencing.
of planting a memorial tree in Mills Park that then gets dug up later. You might actually make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Any
off in
tree, any
the long
trees that are
run.
put in there are gonna be placed, you know, with staff and with the master plan in
Yeah.
mind.
And then just one more comment about the urban forest master plan. I brought this up at I can't think of what I'm saying right now, but the community input meetings for the city master plan, that I think it would behoove us to have a master landscape plan. In addition to trees, that we come up with a list of approved shrubs, ground covers, you know, what have you, perennials. That's it. Thanks.
Sam?
Great presentation, great job on the website. I think it's really easy to navigate personally, and I appreciate the efforts. So now that we have a formal policy in place, how many applicants or like applications do you see annually?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So we're just kind of rolling this out. You know, we approved the policy a few years ago, but if you weren't, you know, paying attention, coming to our meetings, you might not have known that that happened. There may have been an article in the newspaper or something about it, but kind of this effort that these ladies have done to create the website, the brochure, this is our way of finally rolling that out so that there is a place for people to get that information. We can include it in newsletters and on social media and just start to really get the information out. So, so far we haven't had that many. A lot of them have just maybe been word of mouth, you know, people reaching out to us. But we did work recently on a bench application. We certainly have had a few trees, so it's been pretty small. But I'm anticipating now that we really have this solid place for getting information out that we should hopefully start to see more.
Thank you. And then what's a general timeline from an application being approved to seeing a park bench installed or a tree being planted? I don't think I saw it called out on the website, but I didn't look too in depth.
That's a good question. So it depends on if it's you know, a tree or a bench. You know, certainly you can only plant trees, or you should only plant trees during certain times of year. So if someone came to us with a request for planting a tree in August, we might, you know, push that into the fall to the correct planting window. Benches can move a little bit more quickly. The slowest part on that, honestly, is ordering the bench and waiting to receive it. Sometimes those things are back ordered and can take time. So it just kind of depends on what the person's looking for and kind of what time of year we're in.
So it seems like the adopted trail or the plaques would be the quickest process, right? Okay, and then how many memorial trees and benches do we have currently in the city?
That's a good question, Marina Lovejoy for the record. We can look at this nifty map. You could go and count them all, but I think I remember from when I was building it out. There's over 30 memorial trees. Most of those are in the ALS Grove at Mills Park. And there's even some some data from trees that were donated in like the 90s. You know, that are still standing, which is phenomenal. And then 2 memorial trees were planted just last year. And then benches, you know, there's less than 10 benches in town. I heard that. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot more opportunity for more memorials in town for sure. I did want to make a plug. I'm not sure when this happened, but there's a couple of memorial trees that are planted as memorial trees that are not dedicated to someone yet. So perhaps that's an opportunity for someone with a financial burden or hardship to, make a donation, honor a loved one with a tree that's already been planted.
I was wondering, since we're just rolling this out, would it be possible at the most to have like a little plaque with the QR code, and it should be in the library, in the MAC, in the community center, at City Hall, every city building, maybe the senior center, and at least something on the bulletin board with the QR code. And I really liked what Aaron said about kind of expanding it, because sometimes people might be willing and wanting to donate, but not wait for someone to pass away.
That's a great comment. When we have all of this finalized, unless there's much more feedback from you all, we're gonna print a bunch of brochures and take them to the library, all the places that you suggested. And then that's a great comment too. Maybe we install a sign at the cemetery or at Mills Park with the QR code that directs people to this website.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And also, I'm not hiring you out, but we do still have service organizations like Rotary, Lions Club, Kiwanis. This would be a fantastic presentation for them. So I don't know if you'll be willing to go on the road, so to speak. But I'm pretty sure that they would love to have you. So thank you very much.
Charles? No. Keith? They covered it. You got it? Okay, then you're back with me again then, huh? Memorial, so I liked what Aaron said too, that go beyond memorial so that there's a chance somebody might be able to do something special for somebody, but even something simple like Alzheimer's, while they're still there, you can give them a memorial too. I mean, there's some things you could do. My main question is about the money. Now, is this a fundraiser, or is they just paying for the cost of the bench?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So they're paying for the cost of the tree or the bench. We have staff, we cover the staff time basically to install it. But as far as furnishing the actual memorial, whether it's the bench, the tree, or the plaque, they are paying for it and responsible for paying.
So there is no fundraising as part of this
Not
program.
at this time.
It's just paying for the tree or the bench then. Because a lot of nonprofits do benches and parks and stuff, and they get the money, and they give you, there's a flat rate for $2,500. You get this bench, but you also have money that you make out of it. I've actually proposed that before, but I don't think it ended up going that way. But it did say the foundation could be somebody that could receive the funds. Well, then they'd have to still work with parks to get it, put it in, and do all those things that need to be done. So I thought it was a fundraiser, and the foundation could use those extra monies, but see that the job gets done. But I don't think you guys have that flexibility with the way it's written now to do that. And then, so if there was extra money, then I wanted to say the open space should get the money, not Parks and Rec. Because depends on where it goes. Yes. We'd be sitting there arguing over whose piece of turf that was that the memorial's on. So, but if it's not a fundraiser, then we don't have to worry that much about it. And then I figured out in your discussion that the place the trees are going are already being irrigated. So anywhere a tree goes, your little map shows irrigated areas, so you're not asking the family to bring a 5-gallon jug every week to water their tree. So, and I was going to recommend the foundation put the same thing on their website, and they can be really simple. Click, and away they go. But that's, I thought, was a fundraiser. So, but they still might be amiable to that, so that you can. And foundations is where people look for memorials, actually, ways that they can give for family members. So I think, let's see. Oh, and there are memorials on the golf course. Did you guys approve those? You guys, I shouldn't say that, but were they part of the program, or a bunch of guys have a 6-pack of beer and go up and put a plaque up there for Johnny or something?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. I'd have to check. I'm guessing they were probably installed before this policy was created since it was they're recent.
There's a couple.
They're just cropping up. Okay, well.
So
I
they're
will
popping
find
up.
out
I just wonder
more.
who would have given them permission besides the golf course, but
Yeah, I'll
that's
find
not to
out
rat
about
them
that.
off, and I hope nobody's on the air that'll be looking for me now, but I was just curious because the golf course is a perfect place for benches and memorials, so for diehard golfers, but just a comment. I'm done. It's good to put this to closure, using Aaron's talents and yours together to get this out off the list, checkbox. So thank you for that. So I'm done. Do I want me to, what? Want to go to the next one? What? Okay, so am I clear to move on to the next item so I don't leave somebody out? Does anybody have any more comments on your side? Nope. Okay, cool. Now we're going to a new discussion and presentation. Discussion and presentation, review the updates in the Carson River Master Plan Amendment Project. And Lindsay's up this time and she let the staff go home. One staff. Oh,
All right, so for the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager, here today to talk about the Carson River Master Plan Amendment. We have been working on this project for a number of years, and in the last year or so have done a lot of work on this project, and there's been a lot of engagement and just lots of activities, and so wanted to bring it before both boards to just kind of update you guys on where we're at. And we had given a presentation at the December meeting of last year, which originally was meant to be a joint meeting, and we ended up splitting those apart for different agenda reasons. So I realized that PRC hasn't had a lot of updates about the master plan recently, so I kind of went back in time to give you guys a full picture about what we've been working on. So before we get into it, just a little bit of history regarding planning for the Carson River corridor. So in 1993, a Board of Supervisor member, Kay Bennett, who has since passed away, she was really the original kind of visionary for the Carson River. She was the one who brought it before the board and said, we need to really start thinking about the Carson River and planning for it through Carson City. So it was really through her kind of bringing that up that started this whole plan into motion. So from her kind of initial inquiry about the river, from there we developed a 13-member steering committee for the Carson River. And we also started to kind of think about, what do we want that Carson River corridor to look like? What sort of themes might we be looking at? So they really were thinking at that time about how do we create more public access to the river. So that was followed up with the first ever Carson River workshop that was held in 1994. And we had over 100 attendees come out to that workshop, which is really amazing. So showed that, even at that time, people were really jazzed about the river and really wanting to ensure that it was protected. And a lot of those folks were private property members who were, wanting to ensure that private property was considered and protected as it related to planning as well. And then from there, in 1994, the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution to support planning for the future of the Carson River. So this was kind of the first official action taken by Carson City to start looking at the Carson River corridor. And ultimately that led to the creation of the Carson River Advisory Committee, which was, kind of acted similar to how you guys operate, to kind of oversee the stewardship and the development of the Carson River through Carson City. So then just some more planning continued. So as we all know, in 1996, we passed the Question 18 Quality of Life Initiative. And this was critical for the development of the Carson River corridor because, of course, since then we've used those money to purchase and preserve over 11 miles of Carson River corridor, which is amazing. So that was pivotal to kind of this whole Carson River planning process. The Carson River Advisory Committee that I mentioned, they served from 1994 to 2013. And then at that time, it was kind of identified that, the Open Space Advisory Committee had been created, and a lot of the responsibilities related to OSAC also had to do with the river. So the Carson River Advisory Committee was retired, and those responsibilities were rolled into the Open Space Advisory Committee as far as overseeing, thinking about the river. But the Carson River Advisory Committee was responsible for kind of authoring the original Carson River Master Plan, which was written in 1996. And that's ultimately what we're working to update now. And so I mentioned, from kind of 2000 to 2025, that's where we really focused on our land acquisitions throughout the Carson River corridor. I mentioned those 11 miles, and we also have about 5,000 contiguous acres in the Carson River corridor. So that includes Prison Hill, Silver Saddle, Ambrose, East Silver Saddle Ranch, all of those properties along the river corridor there all came through quality of life funding, as well as many grant funds as well, to ultimately protect the Carson River corridor, because much of that was either under federal ownership or a lot of it was private. And so, all those private acquisitions, they were obviously willing to sell us that property and to preserve the river further. And so that was kind of the activity that was really taking place for those first 25 years or so, was just kind of getting the whole Carson River corridor under Carson City ownership and management. And then starting in 2022, Mr. Mark Kimbrough came to us and said we should look at updating this plan. It's pretty outdated. So he was a big proponent of revisiting the plan, making sure that we were really considering the river corridor into the future. So 2022 is when we started kind of this Carson River Master Plan amendment process. So the 1996 plan, some of the original goals, like I mentioned, was just developing a Carson River corridor. At that time, we didn't have all these developed trails and trailheads and public access points. And so that was kind of, an overarching goal is let's create that public access to the river corridor. And again, we did that through a variety of land acquisitions that ultimately all came under the open space program for management. Another big goal of the original plan was to identify wildlife conservation opportunities. Where do we have critical habitat, whether it's aquatic or terrestrial, within the river corridor that we need to protect? Another big goal was balancing recreation with the natural and cultural resource conservation and protection. Again, we wanted to create that public access and those recreation opportunities, but we wanted to ensure that natural resources were protected and considered, as well as cultural resources. So that was a big goal. Another big one, especially as it relates to just kind of early development in Carson City, was minimizing the impacts to water quality and river health from just overall urbanization, making sure that the river was really considered in all kind of facets of planning in Carson City. And then environmental education opportunities, creating those opportunities for the schools and for teachers to come out and use the river as a resource. That was a big part of it as well. So this is just a map for you guys, so you can, really see those 5,000 contiguous acres we have on the east side of Carson. It's just amazing to see kind of this swath of red that we have here. And again, that's over 11 miles of the river itself that we have protected, all the way from the south end of Prison Hill all the way down to Carson River Canyon and pretty much the county line. So it can't be overstated how incredible this land preservation is, especially for a community as small as Carson. As you all know, we are very unique in having passed the Quality of Life Initiative and being able to use those funds to preserve all of these lands. No other county in Nevada has passed something like that, and we're just so lucky that this is what we've been able to do with it. So just some positive impacts and benefits that came out of the original 1996 plan. I've been harping on those acquisitions, but I think that was the biggest piece. Again, we were really trying to create that Carson River corridor, and that could only be done through acquiring those lands for public access. So that was one of the overarching goals and one of the things that we were most successful at achieving through the 1996 plan. But lots of other great things came out of the plan. So recreation improvements. So we talked about the aquatic trail tonight. And then we also talked about those multi-use pathways that we have along the river, creating those recreation access points for the public. That was a huge part of, what came out of the plan. Those environmental education opportunities, so working with river wranglers. We get kids out on the river all the time now. We teach them about trout and invasive species and water quality and all kinds of things. Teaching them about beavers and cottonwood protection. All of that has been made possible through creating this Carson River corridor. Of course, floodplain protection can't be overstated. So this picture that's in the middle here is an aerial image of Buzzy's Ranch open space taken during the 2017 floods. So this just really highlights the importance of floodplain protection, which we've done a great job of here in Carson City. So by not developing in our floodplains, we're able to save literal millions of dollars when we have a flood event. Reno, is a very different community from us. They have a very developed and urbanized floodplain. There's all kinds of buildings and things, in that downtown river corridor. And in the 97 flood, they had millions and millions of dollars of damage, and our damage was significantly reduced as comparatively, just because we don't have a lot of development in our floodplain. All we have are trails, trailheads, couple benches. So really significant. We're able to allow those floodwaters to spread out, sink in, slow down, do all the things that floodplains are meant to do by keeping them in a natural state. And then just, of course, our wildlife habitat protection. All of our migratory bird species rely on the Carson River corridor and the protection of those cottonwoods. The lower left image there is a western pond turtle. So for those of you who don't know, we do have a native and endemic turtle that only lives here in the Carson River and also the Sacramento River. Don't really know how that transport happened, but it's really special that here in the driest state in the union, we have a native and endemic turtle. So that was taken at Ambrose. That's a baby, so they're usually a little bit bigger than that, but I see them basking at Empire Ranch Trail all the time. So what are we kind of trying to do with this Carson River Master Plan update? So as I mentioned, we did a great job of implementing the 1996 plan. A lot of those original goals have come to fruition, and it's been almost 30 years since we wrote it. So it's definitely time for an update. We need to start planning for the next kind of segment of management in the Carson River. And so that's a lot of what this update is going to be focusing on. So we want to be looking at kind of the current condition of the river. How have things changed in terms of the geomorphology or the habitat? Do we have bank stabilization issues that need to be addressed? Do we have restoration projects that need to be implemented? So restoration is going to be a big component of this plan as well, especially as it relates to noxious weeds, cottonwood protection from the beavers, really just making sure that we're protecting, this vital resource, because riparian areas in Nevada are incredibly rare, but something like 75% of our species rely on those riparian areas, so they're critical. We also want to kind of discuss the current recreation uses and demand. Obviously, since 1996, we've developed all of these different trails and opportunities for people, so we want to kind of codify that because the original plan, that wasn't happening, so we need to make sure that that's captured. I mentioned that there was some public concerns from the original plan, especially as it related to private property. So just making sure that we identify how that's been addressed and how private property has been kind of protected over time. For example, we put out signs, in locations where we have a potential nexus with private property that say, respect private property, things like that. So we want to make sure that, those original voices are still heard. And then ultimately, kind of overall, just how have the environmental, natural, and cultural resource concerns been addressed that were in the original plan, and how do we carry those into the future? So how have we been doing this? So starting in 2022, we brought on the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. So this is a really great program working with the National Park Service. It's not a funding grant, it's a technical assistance grant. So there's no monetary exchange that's coming to Carson City. What we're getting is really good technical support from the National Park Service. So they have an amazing team of planners and natural resource kind of stewards, and they have helped walk us through this process. Because master planning is not easy, takes a lot of time and a lot of considerations. And so just having their, expert guidance through this whole process has been invaluable. And they really have kind of shaped how we have approached this for the better. They have been incredible partners. So that was kind of the first project partner that we brought on. And then we also identified really early on that the Carson Water Subconservancy District was a critical partner. They work on watershed issues throughout the entire watershed, water quality, habitat, recreation, all the things that are kind of incorporated into the plan, they touch in their work. So we needed to bring them in because they're just so knowledgeable and involved and engaged in the entire watershed. And then most recently, we realized that we needed some additional help to get through this whole plan and be able to write it and work through a lot of the engagement process. So we brought on Resource Concepts to assist with the actual kind of writing and kind of latter half of getting this project off the ground. So this is just a map that kind of shows you our project area. So as it relates to the master plan, we are only talking about and planning for the section through Carson City. That being said, we have invited and worked with other agencies, other neighboring counties. We want to, capture anything that might be going on above or below stream that could impact our project. But ultimately, as far as like the site area for the plan is concerned, it's the Carson City owned property through Carson City only. But again, we have all those partners input that we're incorporating in. So can just kind of see all of our different open spaces along the river. And these are all just a variety. You can see the diversity of the river throughout Carson City as well. So as far as kind of a roadmap of where we are, where we've been, where we're going. So this is kind of specific to the stakeholder and public engagement phase, which is kind of where we have been for the last 6 to 8 months or so. There was a lot of work that happened at the front end where we were really just kind of strategically planning, coming up with what partners we wanted to work with, how we wanted to liaise with them, who made the most sense to kind of bring in and coordinate with further. So there was kind of a lot of upfront thinking, looking at different plans, bringing in relevant examples throughout the watershed. So we've kind of solidly been in this engagement phase for a while now, and I'm going to walk you through all of the different engagement things that we've done. And you can see this little red star here is where we're at right now, which is this joint meeting. So we started out with some surveys. We needed to kind of get a baseline for both the public as well as our invited stakeholders, who again are all those different agency staff that we identified that we wanted to coordinate with, kind of figure out, how do people use the river? What do they want to see on the river? What improvements might they want? What issues do they see? What do they love? What don't they love? Just asked all kinds of questions kind of about the river, created a really big data set. I think we got about 300 responses from the public, and then we had numerous stakeholders participate in this as well, and we were able to kind of cross-reference and correlate and see how those things overlapped and where we were seeing commonalities between both the public and the stakeholder. And a lot of this data is what we've used to kind of shape the process as we go along. So this information that we received from the surveys has been critical throughout this whole process. So we started that in the fall of last year. And then we really wanted to kind of kick off this whole stakeholder engagement phase. So again, we had so many different partners, not just agency staff, but nonprofits. There were various consultants, just basically anyone who was in a more kind of technical role throughout the watershed. We wanted to bring them in and gather their feedback. And this is where Park Service has really been pivotal because they are well aware of how to do this engagement, how to do it well, and how to really get the information that you're seeking from these invited partners. So they have kind of helped us do things that we might not have thought about, like kicking the whole project off with a tour. So we brought all the stakeholders out for a guided hike along the river. We kind of talked about different issues, things that we see along the river that may end up getting incorporated into the plan. So it's just a great way to kind of kick off this process and really get the engagement process going, get people thinking about the river and some of the issues that we see. So again, in the fall, we did that tour. Then later in the fall, we had kind of our first stakeholder meeting. So this was held at the Adams Hub, and the National Park Service was able to come into town and actually facilitate this. They're great facilitators, very talented. So we kind of took all of that data from the surveys, and we were able to kind of analyze and break that down and use that as a starting point for a lot of kind of activities and collaboration. You can see here they had sticky boards and we had all kinds of sticky notes, and it was just really a way to start teasing out some more information about those different commonalities that we were seeing coming out of the survey. So you can see here, stewardship was a big theme. Collaboration was a big theme, messaging, so starting to pull out some of those things that we were seeing in the surveys. And you can see it was really well attended. We had a packed room at the Adams Hub, all folks who were, really interested in learning more and being part of this process. Then in March of this year, we had what was known as the second stakeholder workshop. So that first one was, held in the early 90s with over 100 attendees. This one we held in conjunction with the Carson Water Subconservancy Watershed Forum, which is something that they do every year where they kind of bring all of the stakeholders from around the watershed together to talk about watershed issues. So that was a great event to kind of tack onto so that we could capitalize on that great audience and be able to kind of take all the success that we had done at the original meeting and really dive deeper into that. So we had split people into groups, and it was an opportunity to really kind of dig in and spend a lot more time as a group thinking about these different theme areas that we were starting to see, like water, natural resource stewardship, recreation. These things are all emerging from all this data collection and these check-in points that we were doing over time. So this was a great workshop. It was very successful. Unfortunately, our Park Service partners at the time could not join us for this one. This was kind of their bread and butter. They were meant to really lead this whole workshop, but due to just some of the changes at the federal level, they were no longer able to come and facilitate this. So I'm just really proud of the whole team and our staff who had to pivot at the last minute and learn how to be facilitators, because that's not easy. But I think we really rose to the challenge and were able to have a really great workshop. This was held at the Ruval Hall at the Governor's Mansion, which is a great location for this kind of event. And then in April of this year, we had the Carson River Open House. So up until this point, it had been mostly engaging with stakeholders outside of the original survey that we did. But we wanted another opportunity to check in with the public and really make sure that we were giving them a voice as well. And so we had this Carson River Master Plan open house. And so this was kind of part educational and then part really kind of diving into where we were at as far as what we had developed for the plan so far, because by this time we had our goals, we had our guiding principles, we have kind of developed a lot of the framework that's going to be the plan. So we wanted to give people a chance to kind of comment on that. So we invited all of our partners. We had River Wranglers, NDEP, Carson City Stormwater, CWSD. All of them came with their various educational models and were able to kind of educate the public that way, just about general river issues, whether that's flooding or wildlife habitat or mercury, which is of course a hot topic. And then you can see here in the middle, we had these really great kind of vision boards. People had sticky dots and they could kind of comment what was most important to them, what they agreed with, what they liked, what they didn't like. And so this was just kind of another way for the public, from that original survey, now we've developed all kinds of, like I said, goals, recommended actions, things like that, that are really going to form the basis of the plan. And so giving the public a chance to comment on those or add anything that we may have missed. One kind of fun thing that we did as part of the Carson River Open House is we had a mascot. I don't want to call it a contest, but an opportunity for folks to, and especially the kids, to kind of submit what they thought might be a good mascot for the Carson River. We're not quite sure how we might use this in the future. I think they may become a little character that's included in the plan. Maybe they become a sticker someday. Maybe they get included in educational signage, who knows? So these were just some of the examples of what people came up with. Trout were a common one because I think the kids had just done the trout release at the time, so they had fish on the brain for sure. But these are just really kind of cute, all things that we would see in the river corridor. So this was just a nice feature. We wanted it to be a family-friendly event. Open houses are not always a place for kids to come and have fun, so this was something that they could do to engage in the river as well. And then to kind of wrap all of that up, we wanted to do something fun and to celebrate all the success that we had done together. So we had the stakeholder float held in May of this year. So we invited all of those stakeholders who had participated at any of those checkpoints in the past to get on the river with us. We had several rafts, and the idea was just to kind of have a fun day and be able to see the resource that we had been spending so much time thinking about and talking about. So this was a really great event, and we had about 20 or so people on the river. It was a beautiful day. So this was just kind of another example of the Park Service. Again, they unfortunately weren't able to attend this event either, but these are the kinds of things that they encourage us to do that might be outside of the norm of our traditional master plan process. And it just is a really great way to get that engagement piece going. So this has been great. And then just as far as where we're at and next steps, so we are currently working to kind of compile all of the feedback that we've received over time into one comprehensive document. This will kind of form more or less the outline for the plan. And so that's kind of where we're at now is making sure that everything from the open house and all of those different checkpoints are all in one document that we can kind of start to organize and go from there. We've identified kind of some guiding principles. I mentioned we had identified some main themes. So these are going to be kind of the chapters of the plan, more or less: outdoor recreation, stewardship, education outreach, water, and collaboration and partnership. The plan will include goals as well as recommended actions. Those are all things that have kind of, again, come out of that data collection effort. Those, especially the recommended actions, those are things that people suggested to us. And if they're feasible and we're able to do them, they're getting incorporated into the plan. So our hope and goal is that we will have a draft available for your review at the joint meeting in December 2025. We're working towards that goal, and we hope to meet it. But, these things do take time as well. But that's kind of the trajectory that we're on right now. And so with that, I will take any questions.
We're having a secret meeting. Yeah, who's who? Oh, that's right. He smiled though, so we're safe at least.
We're not a quorum.
That's right. So, Keith, we'll start on the end this time.
I'll just say it seems like an incredible amount of work, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing. It's a great resource that we have. Simple, quick question. From your perspective and all of the data that you've collected, what would you say would be the highest priority, not a project, but what would be the highest priority item that we ought to consider and be looking forward to when you come out with a draft plan? I know there's a lot of data, and you haven't really given us a list of, is it going to be maintenance? Is it invasive? Is it bank stabilization? Is it recreation? Is it creating a play park, a kayak park? Or what is the public, what has been the sentiment of the surveys? Something big on your mind that you can take away from all
Sure.
that you've collected. Because it's all in you right there now.
That's a great question. And there's probably a lot of things that I could say, but what's rising to the top just, initially, I think, kind of like Greg said, from the Carson City master plans, people are talking about access. They're talking about how important these spaces are, how important these trails are. And so a lot of the comments were about perhaps more amenities. So making sure that, we have picnic tables and more things like that throughout the river corridor. Some people talked about wanting more fishing access, things like that. So I think a lot of the responses, especially from the public, revolved around kind of recreation and amenities for recreation. There was also some things about, kind of safety and park ranger patrols and things like that, making sure that we're getting good coverage as far as the park rangers being out in these areas, which, I think we have great coverage that way. So that people just, had that increased sense of safety while being in some of these more remote areas. Carson River Canyon, I think is a big one, not only in terms of just the fact that it's very remote, but that there hasn't been a lot of strategic planning or development that's gone on out there. It's all kind of pretty much the way it was originally. And so there's some travel management things that could be done, kind of reducing the amount of social trails that are everywhere, reducing that erosion that's going into the river, just kind of getting some more strategic planning for that location. So I think that certainly rises to the top as well.
Thank you. That's great.
Are we going to be doing the takeout area above the Mexican Dam? You think that would be next year?
Mm-hmm. So for those of you who aren't aware, there's a project that's been kind of working its way through the various processes. It's called the Mexican Dam Portage Project. So this is to create a aquatic takeout just above the Mexican Dam, because right now, if you're floating, from Douglas County down to Carson City, you have to sort of get out in the bushes somewhere and carry your raft around the dam and then get back in. So this will create a formal location for you to get out from the river and then portage around the dam and then get back on. So we've been working with CWSD on that project. There was some challenges with securing the last bit of funding that was needed. We've gone through the whole planning, design, engineering, permitting, all of that stuff is done. And then now we're just kind of to the phase where we need to go to construction. And so there's some discussions being had with Rec Trails about potentially finding some more funding to support that project, because CWSD does have some funds already set aside. So if we can get all of the construction funds needed to make that happen, that could be happening this fall, because the permitting and everything else is all ready to go. It's just getting the funding secured.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say all of these presentations have just been absolutely outstanding. And we are so lucky to have all of you. This team is amazing. It is really, really special. So I thank you, because I love to do all of these activities. And I also wanted to add, I'm a retired elementary teacher, and I must be suffering from serious arrested development, because my Tommy the Trout is pretty lame, but I think it should be the sticker.
Oh no, that's one of yours. Well, it's beautiful and perfect.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I was just curious what the stakeholder response was to potential hardening of the river.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the locations that we included on our tour when we did the original stakeholder tour way back in the fall was to look at the Buzzy's Ranch kind of bank stabilization area. And at that time, it was more kind of introducing that this is a project, that this is an issue that we see on the river, that it's something that needs to get incorporated into the Carson River Master Plan, just some kind of approved guidance from all the stakeholders of how to approach it. And so we haven't revisited that specific project, but have been just talking more globally about bank stabilization in general. And I would say the overall sentiment is a more kind of balanced approach, really trying to bring in the plant component, the willow wattles, so not totally just relying on hardening of the river. And so I think there will be a little bit more tweaking that will come from the guidance, the recommended actions, things that we've received related to that as we kind of develop and flesh out the plan further. But ultimately, I feel like that's kind of the way that it leaned was, kind of a more balanced approach.
Okay, so my turn again. So I just want to say National Parks was, I'm going to be a little political here, but it's very sad because their program is about being involved with the communities. And they're sitting in an office and they can't leave. They can't have, there's no pay for travel. So it's just a bummer that coming towards the finish line here, the group that was so strong helping us. And I just wanted to put a little accent on that it's just terrible how some of the things come to fruition here. And I think from where the decisions are made, they have no idea what trickles down and what you lose out of this deal. So it's just a bummer. So I can say that, but I tried to stay somewhat neutral in there on that. But I just wanted to say that Carson River Advisory Committee was formed, and then it was melded into the Open Space Committee for good reasons. I actually supported that. I was part of the first crack, what an acronym, crack, but one of the first ones. So it was sad that it went in open space, but I have actually advocated for that. And it's hard to work on the river when you have so many open space projects. So thanks to Lindsay, we brought it almost to the top for a while. So then we can, once you bring it up and get everything squared away, then you can back off again. So I promised her that it wouldn't cost any money or anything. And then now she's had to pay for contracts and I told her staff time would be limited and they've already spent 1 million hours on it. So I can't say that I'm just really proud of her and staff, Marina, and for doing all this intricate work. And there were 1,000 comments on the public survey. 300 people responded, but there were 1,000 that I actually helped them with the database because I felt guilty that I said they wouldn't have to do all this work, but 1,000 comments was fun. So this will guide the river for years. And then for this committee, I know you've already heard this discussion, but this is the joint and the chance for Parks and Recs to jump in case they had some comments. So, and it just keeps us up to date with what's going fresh. There's the word, thanks. So thanks again, and I'll check out here.
All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and start at the end.
I'd like to say thank you as well, that the time and work that you've all put into this is just outstanding and amazing, quite a learning process for myself. Thank you for doing that.
Well, and I think in addition to everything that has been said, just the importance of the watershed as a whole and really incorporating that into the conversation about, the preservation, recreation, all of that. So thank you so much. It's been a lot of work, I know.
Where does the Carson River start, both the east and west fork?
So the headwaters originate in Alpine County, which is in California.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
But where does it erupt from the earth? I couldn't tell you that specifically, but it's up in California.
Okay, I followed
Yeah.
it on a Google map and it kind of got lost. So
Yeah.
up on 4 off of Markleeville. I just was
Yeah.
curious. You guys started talking about it, and then I thought, where does it come from? Looks like it comes from the middle of the desert, but anyway. Do you know, Mark?
Well, kinda, there's two forks, so you
Yeah.
follow the forks up.
It comes from Sonora Pass below Stanislaus and Sonora Peak.
Okay,
One of
got
the
it.
forks.
Yeah,
That's the east, that's the
that's
east fork.
The west
That's
fork
east
comes from
fork,
Hope
yeah.
Valley area.
The west fork is more on the
Carson Pass.
88 area.
Right.
Yeah.
This side of that.
Right on. Well, thanks. Just thought I'd throw that.
Trying to stump the panel
I wasn't I really wanted to know, and I thought that everybody else might want to know too. Because where's the Truckee River start, Mark?
Truckee River starts in Lake Tahoe.
There you go. See, that's why I had the question, because I thought, where does this thing start? Anyway, I won't take any more time.
All right. No, thank you for the presentation and, thank you for bringing it forward to update the policy because I think sometimes it takes another eyes to bring it forward to say, hey, because it is a valuable resource here in Carson City and an attraction as well. So again, I mention it to you. If there's anything you want to do educational wise, please reach out and we'll see if we can't get, field trips or, anything on that end as well and get the kids more involved. Because with that, you get the kids out there, they go home and they talk, and then the families hopefully will come out as well. So anything on that end, please just reach out. But thank you for the presentation. It was quite interesting. And I don't know who your guys' photographer is, but on all of your presentations, your guys' photography is phenomenal. And I'm looking at going, how do I purchase? Not that one. There was a sunnier one and some in Greg's as well. So I think it would be great. But yeah. Hey, thanks. Yeah.
She didn't score points with me though, because I made her promise that she wouldn't have my bald head in the pictures. He looked straight at you.
Well, now that you pointed out,
Well, I don't ever even see it till I get a picture of myself. I go, oh my God.
Okay. All right. So with that, then we'll be ready to move on to agenda item number 6. And Lindsay, that's you again. So we'll just start. This is for staff updates for discussion only. Agenda item number 6A, Board of Supervisors action items. Lindsay Boyer will present.
So for the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. In lieu of Jen Budge, our director, being here today, these are normally kind of part of her director's report. She just includes some of the items that have gone before the board recently. So if you have any questions, I will do my best to field them. Otherwise, it's more just for your information.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So you had that all, everybody had that within your packet, which is the her board report that covers April 3rd to May 15th. We'll go ahead and start on this end. Does the Parks and Rec, any commissioners have any questions on her staff report? Okay. It's up to you.
Ditto, no. Does anybody have any comments about that? Nope. Nope. This is an easy one.
All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 7, but thank you for that, and thank Jen as well for her report. So moving on to agenda item number 7, members' announcements and requests for information. 7A will be an update from the Carson City School Board Liaison, which is myself. What do I have? School has ended. So everybody, no. So we are on summer break right now. Graduation was last weekend, I believe, with a combination of Carson High and Pioneer. We had, I believe, close to 490 that graduated, or with the both of them, it might have been a little bit over 500. It was a great, both graduations were extremely well attended. Pioneers was here at the community center on Friday night, and then Carson High School was at the field. And I don't know if you all know, Pioneer is now going to be called Carson High Silver Campus. And so no longer Pioneer High School. It will be the Silver Campus on that end as well. Yeah, so it's a combination of now combining the two schools a little bit together, which I think is a benefit to the community on doing that as well. All I else have to say is we're still waiting to see what the fallout is on the governor's budget for education, because it is not, as the city is seen as well, I don't believe the education is going to come out on top. on that just yet with the funding cut. So we're waiting to see. We approved the budget. We were in deficit spending moving forward, and so that is not a good sign. But we did have reserves to get into, so we just hope that it doesn't continue on that end. So that's my board report for the school district. Are there any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 7B, an update from the foundation for Carson City Parks Liaison. Do we have anybody from the foundation?
That was in the packet.
Nope, in the packet? Okay,
I mean, I read it, but it was in the packet.
That's the foundation presentation, right?
yeah,
They're not here.
They've been putting it in the packet.
Packet.
They've been sending it to us. To put it in the packet.
okay, so that was in our board packet as well. All right, so moving on to agenda item number 8, future agenda items, discussion only. This is for open space, future agenda items.
Can you go back to member announcements?
Yeah, I want to do that.
Okay, I do not see those.
It's part of it, yeah, it's
Top.
okay. No.
Are you
It's the
seeing it
ti-
there?
It's the title of the.
Member announcements, in black on mine.
Okay, so
Member announcements,
we'll go back
7A.
to 7.
There.
No, but there's no A or B or
I
C.
know.
All right, we're gonna
You're
add in a
in the
7C, and it will be members' announcements. So go ahead, we'll start over on this end.
You want to start with me or down
We'll start with you
there?
this time.
I just wanted to say.
All right.
To go along with Greg's trail thing, Cap to Tahoe and all of that, I work up at the bike shop at Incline Village for Max Jones, and we're doing shuttles. And we're starting at the, you get on flumetrailbikes.com, and you can get on a shuttle, and you can ride all the way up to Tahoe Meadows on the even days, and you can ride Tahoe Meadows all the way down to Carson City via different ways, but probably the most popular way would be Tahoe Meadows, Tunnel Creek Road, Marlette Peak, and then down to Carson City, and then come out at the Lincoln bypass there, and it's about 33 miles of mostly downhill. The only match burner is that 3 miles up Marlette Peak. So that's a game changer for Carson City. That being mountain biking for as long as I have, that's just pure smiles.
Why don't you shuttle them to the bottom? Instead of the top.
So you can get on your e-bike and get up there? Get on your e-bike whenever you want and climb up that thing.
I enjoyed the ribbon cutting on Saturday. That was wonderful. Prison Hill West and the adaptive bikes, it was great to try them out. And, just looking through this agenda, the list of what you all do and the outreach and the kayak trips and the kiddo trips, just again, really something. And to hear all of this and see it all printed and the lists on and on and on that outreach. Carson City is a phenomenal place to live. There is so much to do. There's so many opportunities. And I just am celebrating you all. Thank you.
So this was in the foundation packet, but I believe we're going to have a presentation at the next commission meeting. We held the second annual Spring Fling Disc Golf Tournament, which benefits the Movers and Doers program. It was on May 4th, so we really piggybacked the Star Wars, May the 4th be with you. We had right around 100 participants, and we raised, I think it was $3,200 for the program, which is about $600 more than we did last year. And we had a bunch of prizes donated from the community in the region. Duncan Golf was a huge donor, and I just want to thank all the participants and all the partnerships we had with the Parks and Rec, the foundation, park rangers, all the staff. We made an amazing event, and the weather was actually better than the report said, so. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer, but is it here? But She had a lot to do with the $1.6 million project. There's 8 new post-tension tennis courts at Centennial Park. They're close to finish. There's some signage that needs to be put up and a fence on the east side, but we're hoping in the future that can really bring some, income and visitors to Carson City as well. So just spread the word that I get a phone call every day on why they can't play on them. So I refer it to Jennifer Budge.
Well, we'll start with Aaron this time and go that way. Good, everything's good. I'm only gonna say one thing, and on the river, there's a really cool place for school kids, and we've been for years taking them there at Ambrose, it's called, and there's problems now with finances for bus trips and stuff. So in the future, I know that we would love to talk with somebody or with folks at how best to get kids to the river to do programs. So, yeah, so that's just a discussion that get the kids back out there again. And I've been doing environmental education for years, and there's this roller coaster. One year they have bus money, one year they don't. They changed the law so you can't take private vehicles because of liabilities, and because the parents used to bring them out. So there's this pathway that's bumpy. Oh.
But yes, no.
So it's just a discussion point that relates straight to the river and open space. And was that Kelly in the audience? So let me introduce Kelly for a second. She's from Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District. She's the lady that sat through 4 hours of meeting to sit in case there was a question. So she's been a member of our team to put the Carson River Plan together, a valuable member, and showed up tonight. So, but she got out before I could say, at least introduce her, as make her know that it was noted that you were here. Thanks, Kelly. What, Mary?
I forgot, I wanted to say something to Molly. When I taught school, our PE teacher was a wonderful lady, and on Fridays, we both lived out by Eagle Valley Middle School. We would meet kids in our neighborhood at the Moffett Trailhead, and parents started driving them there from other neighborhoods, and we would ride them to school and ride them back. And it's very hard for a classroom teacher. Sometimes I couldn't help her, but that's such a wonderful opportunity. I don't know if we could develop that where people would volunteer and do that on a Friday morning and Friday afternoon, because we would get mobs.
That's what it's called, or?
A bike bus, yeah.
Yeah.
Bike bus.
I mean, I'm not sure, and I do know, I mean, there's funding, concerns with field trips, which is unfortunate, because I think they're always learning opportunities as well as fun and getting out of the classroom as well. But yes, it is always a funding problem, and we're hoping, I think the issue right now that we're trying to do is expand the bus route to pick up further, because they brought it in and so more students are walking, and now we're trying to look at funding to expand it a little bit. So, because that was a concern with absenteeism. So, but, there's different outside of the box things that we can do. And, I think it's just bringing all these different people together to see whether or not it's just an after-school activity. You develop some type of club and it becomes an after-school activity. Who knows? But that's what I'm saying is, we can put the heads together and see what we can come up with on that end. So I'll bring it up and see what we can do. Thank you. Thank you.
Actually, the next item is OSAC. I guess, is there any future agenda items? There was in the packet she put, I know there wasn't one or two maybe is all for the next. I don't have it in front of me. My computer takes a while to warm up. So was there any additions to that sheet that had agenda items for us on our next meetings? because there's a list, but there wasn't a lot on the next meeting, I don't think. Okay, well, that solves that, I guess. I have no action on that item. And we're about ready to close, so I can say that what we were doing is ask for public comment, and this is the first night since I've been on this board that Denny wasn't here. First time.
Same here. Yeah.
So I hope all things are well with Denny, so. So I don't know if there's any other public comment, since you snuck in on public comment last time. Well, that's unusual, actually. Yeah, I know. So I guess we'll put a search out for Danny. So it just shows we respect the fact that we expect him to come make comment at our meetings. So that's it for, all we gotta do is ask somebody to make a motion here from either side, actually. Or do we have to adjourn either side or both sides, or?
You could just adjourn the meeting if you'd
Okay,
like.
the meeting's adjourned then. How's that?
Yeah, so open space adjourns and Parks and Rec adjourns at 8:30.
Great. Thank you. Good stuff.